morning, campers. It is Monday. Welcome to Midnight's Edge of the Morning. I am Tom Connors. With me, as always, is the boss man. How are you doing, Andre?
I am doing good. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, good night, depending on where you are. It's a glorious Monday, and we have lots of fun to talk about today.
All right. And then we also have joining us from the Great White North, Script Doctor. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I apparently have sired a son below me who is wearing the same colors as I.
Well, he's got a bushy head of hair already and a bushy beard, so...
It's glorious.
Early bloomer.
Early bloomer, I guess. Speaking of early bloomers, somebody who generally isn't much of an early bloomer, we have to inject him full of coffee. Mr. Chris Gore of Film Thread is here as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Tom.
Still waiting for the coffee to kick in, I guess.
Yes, indeed.
Nurse, give me another 10 cc of caffeine.
Yeah, I need it.
And I forgot to mention that Culture Casino is actually Script Doctor Jr., so there you go.
Today, at least,
How are you doing? Yeah.
I'm great. I'm today is President's Day here in the United States, and Canada has a holiday, I guess, and so here we are. So
cool. Also joining us while he eats his ramen noodles there, Mr. Paul Chato. How are you doing?
I'm good. Because Canada's a socialist country, we only work one day a week.
Yep. Every other day is family day.
That's right. Every other day is family day, and it's I don't know what the holiday is up here, but I think it's family day.
It is family day, yeah.
Where we have to go find our family.
Yes,
they
the government kidnapped one member, and we have to go on a hunt to retrieve them, or else they are removed from society.
And use a bow and arrow and take them down. We usually give them a 40-minute head start.
I'm all for this. But
nice to be here, gentlemen.
We're glad to have you here, Paul. And let's see what the cast of thousands is saying out there in the chat. We've got Callum Lyle who sends in $2. It says, if someone looks like Simu Liu, that's racist. Well, Callum, I saw the picture and the guy did not look anything like Simu Liu, and this is one I'm going to have to get behind Simu on and say that was kind of a bad call on their part.
I'm unaware of this.
Okay. Yeah, I'm unaware of it too. Is this something we can bring up on screen?
I'd have to go digging for the tweet, but okay. So some basketball or sports thing was doing some celebrity lookalike thing in the audience, and I'm sure it was some kind of joke. Well, they come up on some Asian guy, and it said Simu Liu, and it looked nothing like Simu Liu.
Well, you're not even saying
nothing dramatic about that. Just finding random Asian guy in crowd, and he looks like
and it's Liu.
Here it is. I found it.
It's Simu Liu. Simu Liu, and his nickname is Seams. So
I don't give a shit what his name is.
I'm just giving
that's how much I care.
Don't dead name him.
Yeah, don't dead name him, and don't lack courtesy. Let him be discourteous and disrespectful to you. Don't reciprocate that, because then you would be no different.
Here's the thing: is I don't give a shit. He thinks he's a bigger star in his own brain than he is.
Oh, yeah. Stop it! This is not the topic.
I'm sorry. That is funny.
It is kind of funny.
I can't tell the difference. What?
Who were the most insulted? I'm curious. Was it Simu himself? Was it the guy in the audience because he looks horrified, or was it some random nobody who wasn't even involved who got offended on behalf of all Asians everywhere?
Well, he doesn't look like Simu.
Simu's the one. Seaman, whatever his name is, he is the one who seemingly is offended here. He said it wasn't cool, which again, like I said, I kind of get where he's coming from in that one.
No, he doesn't look like Simu at all.
No, doesn't. I mean, if he wanted to make a joke, he'd be like, I clearly don't have glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
it would prove he had a sense of humor about himself.
It would.
Which clearly
it would be something he would have said about a decade ago, but he wouldn't say it now because he's not that person anymore.
Yeah.
Well, having a sense of humor about yourself is a very likable trait. Look at Paul Rudd. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot we can complain about Ant-Man and the Wasp, but for the most part, people, Paul Rudd's just likable. He has a sense of humor about himself. Look at his recent, press tour for Ant-Man. They're goofing on him. He's Olivia Colman called into some radio show he was on. There's a clip of it online. It's pretty funny. But Paul Rudd has a sense of humor about himself. Simu Liu does not.
Nope.
And
No.
that's going to be a difficult. It's going to make it more difficult for him going forward.
So did he respond badly to this? Is that the
Yeah.
story? If I was
That was
him,
his
I would
retweet,
go.
yeah.
I would go. I can't tell the difference. You could be my twin brother. I mean, I would actually go for it.
Yeah,
right.
lean into it.
He doesn't do that at all. He even claims that it's racist.
Oh, good for him.
And that's where
Probably
this is all
is.
coming from.
I mean, I'll bet you most Occidentals can't tell the difference between a Korean generally. I mean, everyone looks no one looks monolithic, but there are differences in look in Koreans, Japanese, and Chinese. And to a large degree, even Taiwanese, because of the Japanese and Chinese intermixing. And very unique peoples. Maybe because I lived in Chinatown in Toronto for 4 years, I'm able to do a more reasonable job of not mixing everybody up. But yeah, I could, like, I mean, for instance, what was that movie about the geishas, which actually featured Michelle?
Yao.
And I couldn't watch the movie because these were Chinese women, not Japanese. I watched the movie and it made it unwatchable for me.
I just thought it was unwatchable because it was boring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, there's several layers of unwatchable. And but I guess
Memoirs of a Geisha. Or whatever
some cynical American producer went, the American populace, they won't be able to tell the difference between a Japanese woman and a Chinese woman.
We had that in Canada. I mean, Simu Liu's TV role was him playing a Korean.
Correct.
He's Chinese.
But I read an article on that, and that was just but it was also a function of being able to find enough Asian actors, and they were talking with the other chubby Asian actor who also isn't Korean, and he's
Paul Sung-young, right? Or
no, the friend, and he said that's how they get work. Like there's just everyone kind of shares. Those traits if they want work in show business, which is a drag, but
they got to do it in drag too.
Well, it's the CBC, so yes.
Oh, that makes sense. No, I thought it was kind of silly, but I saw that too. Yeah, but it is what it is. Let's see here. We got Callum, who also says Last of Us 2 game was an excuse for Neil Cuckman to project his fetish. The TV series is his way to show his idea for an SJW utopia. Well, the series is really popular. There's that.
You want to talk about...
I know you've been watching it.
Yeah.
Has anybody else here been actually watching it?
Yes. But I fell asleep during last night's episode. So I only
saw
about half of it.
But you were busy. Did you sleep because it was boring or because you're just so strung out?
I would say strung out. Long day yesterday. So, yeah.
So, well, what's your guys' feelings on it then, real quick, so far to this point?
I mean, I like the show. So, I mean, some episodes better than others. And my feeling is, just from hearing people comment on it, that if you've played the game, you don't like the show. If you didn't play the game, you do like the show, because there's that element of surprise. People who played the game, it doesn't go exactly as I had imagined, and the game is better. So that seems to be where the divide is. But I like the show. I mean, how would a breakdown of society like there? I believe that there would be basically warlords. The people with useless jobs would be, serve the people who have brute force at their disposal, i.e. weapons and sheer will. So those are the people that would survive. So I think it would be an effed up world that wouldn't necessarily subscribe to any specific ideology other than power. So, I like how it's progressing. I find the character of Ellie to be the least likable. Unfortunately, she's the lead.
I like her. I love her character.
Yeah, what I'm hoping is that this is her. She's sort of a, she should just listen to Joel. Her, like she should just at times shut the F up and listen to Joel. So I find her annoying. My hope is that she will learn that she should listen to Joel more carefully, or have at least know that she has a lot to learn from him, and come to appreciate him before he's dispensed with a
Hockey stick.
Golf club. Well, they'll change it to a hockey stick. I wouldn't have a problem with that change.
It's a hockey stick in the game.
Is it a hockey stick in the game? I thought it was a 5-iron.
No, maybe. I can't remember.
Anyway, so
It's a golf club.
I find her character just grating at times, just because it's like, you're making stupid choices, and I don't think that there needs to be more consequences for her stupid choices so she can learn. Because I believe pain is how we learn. So, not enough pain has been inflicted on that character. So, I'm hoping that she grows and changes, and that this is just the young, innocent, naive Ellie that will grow into a smarter character, or at least one that I care to follow beyond season 1. So there's my take.
From what I hear, it'll make a great video game someday.
Yeah, exactly.
Callum Lyle says, lastly, a new god of America is called gender, and the idol is the rainbow flag, and trans can do whatever they want, and male and female are feeling. Is this in Last of Us 2?
I don't know what that's a reference to, but
I would assume so, because that was what his last super chat was about, was Last of Us 2 game.
Gotcha.
I think what he means that genders, like being male and being female, they are just subjective feelings that you can change them a little bit depending on what you feel like that day. I think that's what Callum is trying to say here.
I think they're confusing that with personality traits, because in my time of being around, I've seen a lot of different types of people. I've only known there to be 2 genders, male, female. Although I do believe that, there are people who, coming into adult age, have different feelings, and they are become trans, and that's a choice. I believe that's a lifestyle choice. I don't know that we can trust that choice to children, frankly. So there you go.
That's a whole different discussion from from the show. I liked The Last of Us. I think it's a well done. I'm kind of overlooking the moments that I personally disagree with, but I didn't make those choices. So these are just choices. There's not necessarily a wrong choice. The show is well done. I do like the relationship the two of them have. Why did the life partner of Tom, Joel's brother, openly discuss the fact that they're living in a commune society? I don't know. I would never see that on Rockford Files. Unless there was payoff. So they laid that out as a fairly major smoking gun and then did nothing with it. So why even say it? On the other hand, I have seen other reviewers who have disavowed the entire series because this woman mentioned communism. That's just immature.
Yeah, I think it's a legitimate choice for society after society breaks down for that. I think
why name it? Just live it.
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, see, that's the thing that I think people have a problem with is, and you combine that with Ant-Man's shout out to socialism being kind of a charged word. It just appears that like our most popular media, a Marvel movie, and the biggest show currently on television are basically here's a justification for communism. And I think that people are pissed off and offended by it. I mean, it was never necessarily named, but in Walking Dead, they did, practice something of that. Everyone had to contribute, resources were shared, right? They just never named it.
No, and the other part too is that it was way different in context. It was done as a means of desperation and survival,
yes,
as opposed to taking something that's kind of doing a decent job and saying, no, we're going to try and make go better, and we're going to do that by removing rights of other people. Those are two different things. The other part to also think about is, what is the context of the characters that are saying these things? Are they good guys or are they bad guys? And if they're bad guys, let them say bad, dumb things so that the story can progress and prove them wrong, because that's part of what story is. Don't just jump or knee-jerk reaction just because a villain said something stupid, because they're supposed to. Yeah. They're the bad guy.
she wasn't the bad guy. What was funny, and I mean,
just in general, I don't watch the
when the woman, Tom's life partner, said, "Yeah, you could call it communism." Tom's reaction to Joel was funny because neither Joel nor Tom fit that mold, and he actually felt apologetic, and there was a kind of happy wife, happy life, just shut up moment. There,
okay, that's funny.
Which I thought, I might be reading into it, but I was pretty certain that was there. Why Joel had to weepily tell Tom that he's broken and can't continue. Why weepily? That choice I didn't understand. Yeah. So
I guess I don't have to wait too long though for the game.
He could have just said it stoically in his regular way, but in the game, I don't know. I don't think Joel is weepy in the game. I mean, I did watch a walkthrough, but again, that was a while ago. Why did the producers make that choice? It didn't add to the ending of it. It didn't add to the way it resolved to have Joel almost weepily cry that he can't continue, and Tom, it should have been, "Hey, Tom, I'm broken. You fucking take this girl. I'm done." It wouldn't have made any difference. But the directors and producers or whatever made the decision that Joel had to be a basket case. That wasn't satisfying to me. But like any show, they returned back to its normalcy at the very end. Oh, until he got stabbed in the gut. But that was pretty cool.
So it's all good then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Let's move on from there to the topics of today, and obviously we are going to be a little bit Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania centric, since that movie just came out and it hasn't done too amazing either at the box office or in terms of audience reviews. Case in point, Star Wars Community says for £4, Phase 5 is horrible writing, pandering, and KF. Anyone want to enlighten me on what KF is?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Thanks for that. Phase 5 so far isn't doing any wonders.
Before we get too far into that, I just wanted to say Callum Lyle sent this too and said that gender thing was something Drunk 3PO said on Geeks and Gamers and said it much better. Okay, so something was lost in the translation, evidently. So now we know where that came from. So, okay. Back to Marvel.
Yes. So, back to Marvel, into the... Anyway, back to Marvel.
I didn't hit that. I don't know who hit that.
So, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania opened this weekend. And it didn't do too amazing either at the box office or with reviews and audience feedback. We're about to get into the box office. But before we do, now we have the full panel here today, and of course I've seen the movie. I wasn't too impressed by it. You all remember Cultured Casino's review from Friday, which was basically, it's in focus, and the director failed to run up to him and take a dump on his chest, so that was good. And that was pretty much the best that you had to say about it, Cultured, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't actually find any other way to describe my movie-going experience, so I'm going to let those words stand.
Yeah. Script. Did you see the movie? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I'm in the same boat as you, Andre. If this were, I mean, it's better than what we've seen in Phase 4, but that's not saying much. Over the overall, with regards to Marvel, if you were to rate it against the best one, it's not even in the top 15 or 20.
But it's somewhere in the bottom, or maybe 15, 20, although that bottom is starting to get pretty crowded now. Mr. Gore, we haven't had you on since the movie opened. Let's have your Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and that's a mouthful title. What's your review of it? What's the verdict?
It's a 5 out of 10. It's for me, it is better than what we've seen in Phase 4. I thought Phase 4 was middling. Wakanda Forever, for me, being the worst of the last phase, along with Eternals. But there are some positive aspects to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, one being Paul Rudd, I think is still very likable. I think the book ending of the Welcome Back song, I quite enjoyed. The sort of humor that played out with him writing a book and, reading his autobiography at a book signing, I thought was very, very funny. I thought the ending where he kind of realizes, did he actually save the world, or is there a dark threat looming because of his actions, where the movie gets kind of serious for a second and then goes back to the music, which is funny. It's in character for Paul Rudd. He's the highlight. Michelle Pfeiffer looks amazing. Shocking. She looks great.
I don't even think they actually de-aged her in the flashbacks.
No, it doesn't look, she looks great. She looks great. I think this is more of the Ant-Man family movie than it is the Ant-Man movie, but whatever. I thought Jonathan Majors as Kang is promising, especially in light of the He Who Remains, which was in Loki in the final episode of that season. So there's positive things, and I will say this: I think you're wrong, Andre. I think that audiences generally are positive on the movie. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes score, it's in the 80%. I saw it with a group of people. About half of them liked it, and half of them didn't. But even the ones who liked it did admit they've got Marvel fatigue. Right, but
I would say though that you say that it opened in the 84% range on Rotten Tomatoes, but when you look at what Marvel movies tend to open to, that's not great.
Yes, but that's again part of the fatigue, the Marvel fatigue. People are experiencing Marvel fatigue.
It's bad Marvel movie fatigue.
But I mean, look, there can be too much of a good thing. There's a reason that phrase exists. So, I mean, look, if Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania was in Phase 1, we might have been losing our minds, right? If that was a Phase 1 movie, but it's not. We're 30 movies in? So, and how many TV shows? I think it's very telling that, it's been announced that certain television shows, Marvel TV shows, are on kind of permanent hiatus or hold in development. And, they moved the Marvels. The subliminal imagery in that Marvels poster is shocking.
and
Donald's, you mean?
It's not so subliminal.
Yeah, Tom, bring that up on screen here when you can.
Yeah, but so many other things. I feel like Marvel's getting convoluted for normies. Just incredibly convoluted. There's so many bizarre plot holes, and you cannot think about this movie too much. I think the comparisons to Star Wars are not warranted. I don't know what I mean, other than I guess parts of the quantum realm city look like Coruscant. Other than that, I see no valid comparison to Star Wars. When I think you're comparing something to Star Wars, what comes to mind for me is tone. And there was nothing about the tone of that movie that felt Star Wars to me. It
was very Rick and Morty.
Yeah, it was Rick and Morty-ish. They have to stop hiring those writers.
They really do.
They're not very good. Or they haven't proved to be good outside of Rick and Morty. But
they don't have Dan Harmon to get the best out of them. That's probably.
Yeah, that matters. I believe that, a competent creative leader matters a lot. But you look, for me, it's a 5 out of 10. I think Yellow Flash said it was a 6 out of 10 for him. I think it's on the lower end, but it's not the worst of Marvel either.
No, that it most certainly is not.
But I think part of it also is, I mean, we're getting into spoilers now, but the two end scenes, you got the one, end credit scene where there's the stadium of Kangs all being brought together for what end? I don't know. I guess they're going to have a meeting. You have Rama Tut in there, among others, sort of different incarnations of Kang. Then you've got that sort of tag at the end with Kang looking like a Frederick Douglass from, I don't know, early 1900s, 1800s, whatever. Giving a little show presentation about time. And there's, of course, Loki. So it's a plug for the TV show. But if you don't know that, if you don't have Disney Plus or have the TV show, I find that a complete waste. I guess now you have to watch Loki season 2 to get more answers about.
Absolutely. And also, just if sorry, I did not mean to interrupt, but just want to use that to point out that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, it was very little help to see Spider-Man No Way Home going into Doctor Strange. What you needed to see was WandaVision on Disney Plus. And an argument could be made that all of the Disney Plus series is what has really been detrimental to Phase 4, perhaps more so than the movies.
Yeah, so I just think it's like a mixed bag. Like I say, for me, it's a 5 out of 10. But like I say, I went with a large group of people, about 12, 13 people. We all went to see it, and half said that was fun. What are people complaining about? And then the other half were like, yeah, that was did not like that at all. So I attribute that to the fatigue. I think one of the weaknesses of this movie is this isn't a third Ant-Man movie. It's the first Kang movie, I guess. But so much of the logic, if you start to think about it, just starts to fall apart. And I've seen it twice. So on second viewing, like a lot of things just stood out as like, that doesn't make any sense.
I can mention another thing, because just to call back to what you said about Ant-Man being there wandering towards the end. Oh my God, did I do something really, really horrible? Did I destroy everything by not letting Kang escape? To which I would counter that, no, actually, for the Marvel Universe, everything is exactly the same. That Kang was stuck in the quantum realm anyway.
Yep.
And he wasn't coming out. And Ant-Man stumbling into it didn't change anything one iota where the larger Marvel universe is concerned.
Other than just getting rid of Kang, like in the.
Well, they had gotten rid of that particular Kang anyway, because he was stuck in the quantum realm with no way out. So he was.
Well, no, you're missing the other part, which is that he enslaved the quantum realm. So the only thing he did is he freed the quantum realm, which again doesn't change his current realm, which means that his actions don't really have much of a purpose on the grander scheme of things.
Exactly, the whole movie was pointless, and Ant-Man doesn't need to feel bad at all, because things are exactly the same as Gary pointed out from Nerdrotic, if they just had sorted out everything over the course of a dinner, nothing would really have been any difference. In the larger scheme of things, it was a movie completely without stakes.
Yeah, why didn't Janet Van Dyne actually admit, like, I think I effed up when I went to the quantum realm? Or, when they were, I believe this was at the end, of Ant-Man and the Wasp? I'm trying to think of what movie, where Ant-Man goes into the quantum realm and then everyone that's outside of there to bring him back.
Yeah, that's the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. That was literally the only scene from that movie that also mattered anything to the larger scheme of things. The whole movie before that was completely pointless where the rest of the MCU is concerned, and I don't remember it. And to be completely honest, I don't know of anyone who's able to remember what happened in that movie either.
Yeah, no, with that, another pointless one. But it's the idea that he would go down in the quantum realm without some sort of briefing about what he may encounter. I may have enabled a totalitarian dictator in this quantum realm. Just if you run into a guy named Kang, run the other way. That's all I'm going to say. Would have been a quick conversation. So Janet Van Dyne being coy about what happened for 30 years when she was gone is that she wouldn't talk about it. And there were so many scenes of her, I can't talk about it. Let's go. We got to keep moving.
That was ridiculous.
They should have had a whiteboard meeting.
Right, exactly.
In a small boardroom.
No, like really, she didn't even have to admit that she totally cucked her husband with Bill Murray if she didn't want to. All she had to do is like, look, there's this dude called Kang in here, and he needs to stay here. So all that means is that we can never ever go back, and just to be on the safe side, we should just destroy every means of getting there, and we're good. That's my last 30 years. Now let's move on with the however many years we have left. End of discussion.
Yeah, it
would have solved the whole movie.
It did get ridiculous. That got frustrating for me. But having said that, I really love Michelle Pfeiffer. I thought she was well used in the film, and
I love Michelle Pfeiffer too.
Yeah, she's.
Oh,
great.
You mean in the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on from the review, other than point out that on CinemaScore it actually has a B, which puts it right in Eternals territory. So the response, you can argue how bad it has been, but it certainly hasn't been up there with what most Marvel movies have. So it'll be interesting to see how it holds up at the box office. Now, we do have some box office indications, and Cultured, I trust that you have a reasonably good grasp on the box office. Both what were the expectations going into the weekend, and how did it do towards the end here? Did it come in?
Well, before Culture starts, clearly, according to Box Office Mojo, this is the biggest hit in the world right now with $357 million as a total. That can't be wrong at all, is it?
I believe Valiant Renegade had something to say about that.
Did they double the worldwide?
They did this again. Remember, I can't remember what movie they did this before on, but I believe it was another Marvel movie. They added them together to make it look like a big ass number when it's like, no, that's not the true. The true number is more like the 239 is the full worldwide. I'd imagine.
Yeah, basically, what they did is instead with international, there they have put in domestic plus international, and then they have added that again for the worldwide. Whereas in reality, international is the 239 minus the 118, and the true worldwide is 239, right?
Which actually makes more sense because once you subtract it, it's closer like 120, which means basically split between the two, which is more like we normally see. Yeah,
but they're adding in today. They're adding in what their projection for today here because
they are.
Yeah, I did notice that many were suddenly bringing up the 4 and the 5 day and everything like that.
Yeah,
because they're projecting it for 14 million today.
Yeah, they're trying to sit on today's numbers as that. But I'll tell you this, we as late as the Valentine's Day, right? Tuesday of last week, we were supposed to be seeing a $280 million opening for this film. They promptly reduced those things, and we've talked about it here that it was only going to bring in 250, and then they revised it again down to where it actually came out at 225. So we ended up with a real opening weekend of 225 global. It's very, very strange that you're getting these numbers reported by Box Office Pro and other places as completely misleading and disingenuous would probably be a nice way to say that. But it only did somewhere between 102 and 104 million in its opening frame domestically, and we were already seeing a substantial decrease in interest in China, where it didn't open huge, but it opened okay, and those numbers are already projected to go down. So even though this film was one of the first Marvel films to get back into China for an opening, that's timely. I'll describe it that way. The numbers are not going to be good in China, so China's not going to help this MCU film, and I think we're already seeing it head downward. We're going to see quite a substantial fall off going throughout this week, despite the fact that it's a holiday here in the United States and a holiday in Canada. I think that once we get past this Monday, this thing falls off a cliff, and it will probably be one of the worst performing MCU films that we've had outside of maybe Eternals.
Yeah, because the movie needs about when you take the budget and we of course we don't know any details here, but when you take the budget and the assumed cost of promotion into account, the movie would need somewhere between 600 million in the low end and 700 million in the high end.
Yeah,
just
And
to
that's
break even.
assuming it's not as expensive as Wakanda Forever.
Well, they've said a $200 million budget.
200 million.
If we go with that,
that doesn't count reshoots and everything either, probably.
No, but if we just go with the numbers that they have, then at the very, very, very lowest end, this is so low that it's probably not real. They need 600 million to break even. Probably the break-even point is closer to 700 million. And at the domestic opening of barely 100 million and 226 million worldwide for the total 4-day opening weekend, 5 if you include Wednesday where it opened. That's a tall order. That means it's going to have some excellent word of mouth in order to get to that point. If it has meddling words of mouth, that isn't looking too good. And also in terms of expectation, I happen to remember this. Going into the weekend, the studio expectation was 280 million worldwide. Now, that's not what they wanted. Of course, they would have liked it to be higher, but that is what they thought it would get, reading the tea leaves. Now, the actual number is then closer to 225, 230 million. So that's an underperformance relative to expectations worldwide by 60 million, including China. So that's hardly a flying start for Phase 5, is it?
Well, basically, you're looking at it has to do anywhere between 3 and 4 times what it's done its opening weekend in its entire run now. There ain't no way it's going to be able to do that. I mean, we never had high expectations for this movie anyway, but I believe the studio had higher expectations in this. And as we pointed out, they were already hedging the headlines early on, right? Because the original projections for this film were pretty high. And then they brought it down and down and down and down and down. And it settled around 105 million for the actual weekend proper, right? Culture, that's the actual number.
Say that one more time.
105 is the actual number for the weekend in the U.S., right?
Yeah, actually, there's an argument about whether it's 102 or 104, but yeah, I think they're
okay. Well, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt with 104 then.
Yeah.
So even still, they're trying to. That's the thing, is they're trying to make it look like a bigger, like the only thing the headlines can claim is that it's the biggest opening for Ant-Man, basically.
Yeah,
that's it.
Ant-Man film.
That's all they can do. And I mean, you guys are right. The critics are killing this. It's getting a cinema score of a B, and I know that doesn't sound bad, but for those who don't know, that is bad for a cinema score, because usually it's like in the A minus percentile for good movies. If it hits a B, then that means there's something wrong.
Yeah. They're pulling out all the stops, and again, it's the fact that they're already leaning into the 4-day. The fact that they're trying to, lean into those tactics, is already telling. You can always tell when they are seeing a film underperform and they're trying to artificially hold it aloft. I have a feeling that they're going to be surprised next weekend when Cocaine Bear gives this film a run for its money in its second weekend.
I already have my tickets for Cocaine Bear. I'm seeing it on Thursday.
Yeah.
And then I'm seeing Chrissy Mayer in concert in Pasadena.
Ooh.
Nice. Very cool.
So, there you go. Yeah, Cocaine Bear. Well, first of all, by the way, don't get too excited about Cocaine Bear. One, there's a screening of the movie for critics the day before it opens on Wednesday. Additionally, the embargo to talk about it, if you choose to go to that screening, is 1 p.m. on Thursday. I've never heard of an embargo to that late in the game. That is not a good sign.
It's usually not a good sign, but this is a critic-proof film. But go ahead, Andre.
The Tranktastic 4.
Yeah, that's true. I remember that.
I think Ghostbusters had a pretty late one too.
Yeah,
there's been a few over the years, but here's the thing with that, Chris, and you're probably right. With the critics, they're not going to like this movie. Doesn't matter.
Also, look, I've seen the trailer. I already know it's a stupid movie. I know what I'm getting into. When I go to eat fast food, I know what I'm getting into. Okay, I'm not. It's not filet mignon. It's In-N-Out, but In-N-Out is just fine, and that's what Cocaine Bear is. It's a fast food movie you're going to have a good time with an audience. You're not going to see a good movie. Like, I already know that going in, and look, that's my review of Cocaine Bear, and I haven't even seen it.
Well,
here's the thing.
Probably very accurate, because there's nothing about it that says this is going to be a good movie. It's just going to be a silly bunch of weird stuff going on with a bear and these people in a very contrived plot.
Ray Liotta's last film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and as I was going to say, they're actually projecting it now at around a high end, about $36 million for the opening weekend.
I bet it didn't cost that,
Well, here's the thing is, what happens, and I brought this up last week too, but what happens if that movie actually bumps Ant-Man off the top spot for its second weekend? And yes.
I don't see that happening. I think
it could.
I think Ant-Man will be number one, but it'll have a significant drop. Significant. So there you go.
I say never on that, but we'll see here. I have a feeling it'll come neck and neck at the end of the weekend. They'll be like, maybe Cocaine Bear did take the number one spot. The only thing that Ant-Man has going for it is it has all the big screens. That's the thing. Kind of like with Megan. Like, I'm still convinced Megan would have made more its opening weekend had it more screens to open up on. Because I had talked to some people and they were complaining about it too. It's like, yeah, we got Avatar and their two biggest screens and nobody's in the theater, but we got Megan selling out.
I'm looking forward to Cocaine Bear. So when I see it on Thursday, I'm going to be really excited to talk about it on Comics' show Thursday night.
Puss in Boots only took a 5% drop according to somebody in the chat. Is that true, Culture?
A soft drop? Let me look.
It said 5%. Wow. And that movie's on video on demand, and it's still playing in theaters really well.
Well, only goes to show that if you have a really good movie, people will want to see it on the big screen, even if you have the small screen alternative.
Well, the thing is you're probably right, Chris, because Cocaine Bear is rated R. But can you imagine the heads that would roll come a week from now, Monday morning, if Cocaine Bear does happen to dethrone Ant-Man on its second weekend?
Well, I will say this. I'm very excited that they're giving away free gummy bears to anyone who buys a ticket to Cocaine Bear while supplies last at AMC theaters.
Are they laced with cocaine?
Ooh.
Possibly.
Sweet. That means there's a chance.
Yeah. No, it's going to be that German brand that if you ate too many, it became a laxative.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Those reviews on Amazon are brilliant.
I thought that was just the sugar-free ones.
What is it?
Haribo? Haribo, I think they're
Haribo.
pronounced.
I mean, see, they should be giving away those, and then they say, but please don't overdo it.
Have one at the start and one at the end, and then go to town when you get home.
You'll never make it through the film.
I thought that was just the sugar-free ones. Oh,
the sugar-free ones, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say, I just ate a whole bunch of the real ones.
Some kind of their own sugar-free product.
Substitute that's also a laxative.
Yeah, in some of those reviews, I think after a while, people were just making some up. But yeah.
What? The internet making stuff up?
The script is right.
To read.
They are very entertaining to read. But something that wasn't so entertaining, it seems like, was Ant-Man this weekend, I guess. And I know it's tough sitting here going, oh, a movie that made $100 million is underperforming. But guess what, kids? A movie that made $100 million is underperforming, because at the end of the day, making the $600 to $700 million this movie needs to make, and even to match the first two films, it's going to be a tall order. And it even has inflation and some other things on its side here. I mean, really, Chris is right. Cocaine Bear shouldn't be any competition for this movie, but it's going to be.
I remember when a movie hit 80 million, and that was like a monstrous hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, they cost less to make back then.
Yeah, I don't think Cocaine Bear is going to be. I don't think it's going to be an issue. I think it's a totally different market from Ant-Man, but I think that I think when it comes to Marvel, what the audience has been trained is if they want to avoid spoilers, they need to, they've got to see the movie quickly. They've got to see it soon. They got to see it First weekend.
Yeah, it's all front loaded is what you're saying.
Well, and I don't know about not being the same audience. I mean, as a whole, maybe, but there's a lot of 12-year-old boys who are also probably going to be interested in seeing Cocaine Bear, Chris. I mean, they're not going to be able to go in and see it without paying for another ticket, but yeah.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure how much like movies like that. Like, I know when I was a kid, sneaking into an R-rated movie was kind of a big deal, like going to see Animal House or, something like that.
Let's just say I actually know somebody who's 17 who has said they're going to do just that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's kind of a rites of passage, maybe a more innocent one. Get into an R-rated movie. I mean, they do check ID at the door, but, they don't check ID when you walk into the movie theater. So you can get a ticket for another movie. You could get a ticket for 80 for Brady. And then you could just, go see Cocaine Bear.
I can't remember, like last year when he went to see Scream, I think it was Spider-Man he got a ticket for.
Yeah, let me also suggest that when you get a ticket on your phone or device that has one of those QR codes, they don't know how old you are when you bought that ticket, and they don't.
I've noticed that too. That's a good point.
No, they check ID though at the door for R-rated movies. So
I've never seen them do it, but it's possible.
Yeah, I've never had that happen.
Yeah, well, at the theater I go to, they check your ID just to make sure it matches that your account with the QR code matches who you are. They always do.
Yeah,
that.
But you're also in California where everybody's breaking into your car right now as you speak.
Yeah,
dude, the crime is out of control. I can't deny it. Like downtown Los Angeles is a shit show, and even up Wilshire Boulevard, it's god awful. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing.
Let me put it to you this way. Now, I know this is a little tad off topic, but crime is so bad around there. The guy who does all those fancy, like, when people rip off the Amazon packages off the porch, and he has like a machine in there that'll spit out all kinds of confetti.
The glitter bomb guy.
The glitter bomb. That's it. Glitter bomb guy. Yeah. Let's put it this way. The crime is so bad in that town that a bunch of criminals just bypassed a expensive headphone set because it was too much to deal with. So they're moving on to the next thing. Yeah. It's like they don't even bother with some of these products anymore because they're like, it's too much to deal with. I'll just move on to the next thing. So they had to make it smaller so the criminals would actually steal it.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah. And then they figured out they would only steal it if they put it in the back seat. Yeah. These guys are, because they're getting smart. They realizing that some of these things are just that. They're like bombs or trackers.
So you mean the glitter bombs are now in smaller boxes, so it's more inclined for them to steal?
Exactly. Yeah. Because when they had it in a bigger box sitting out, they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't take it. They'd look in the back, because what they would do is they'd break the far back window, and they're popping open the trunk to see if there's anything in the trunk.
Yep.
If there's nothing in the trunk, they just move on. They ain't gonna bother with anything that's in the front.
Yeah, they actually have scout cars that go by, and then it's just amazing how sophisticated they are, and they actually put air tags in them to track where they were taking them. Yeah, it's crazy there.
But it's actually probably a good place for us to break. Let's grab some super chats here so we can get into Roald. What do you guys say?
Cool.
Honestly, there's really not much we can say about Ant-Man until we see how it plays out next weekend. Really.
Yeah, I've just one final question about Ant-Man. I want to hear all your thoughts here. Mr. Chato, we didn't hear anything from you based on
I've not seen the movie.
Exactly. And based on what you've heard, at least, about Ant-Man, how excited are you for the rest of Phase 5 going forward?
Not really very much at all. The television stuff is uninteresting. They're backtracking on the Marvels. It's none of it sounds good. For me, a lot of this show business thing is you've got to entertain from top to bottom. Mm-hmm. That includes the people are in charge have to be part of the entertainment, like being a carny barker, and it just seems like they're circling the wagons. And there's nobody there who is putting themselves out there to be part of the focus of this circus. It just feels very pathetic, and a real downgrade from the Phase 1 and 2. What was the final movie? The Snap movie with Iron Man?
War.
Infinity, yeah. So that's
the snap happened in Infinity War.
Endgame is where the final.
That's where the snap was undone.
What phase was Endgame?
Snap.
Yeah.
What phase was Endgame?
That was the last of the third phase. Yeah.
That was Phase 3.
That was phase 3. So, after that, we all have documented that it's just been a pathetic pile of trash.
Yeah.
So, I'm not looking forward to more Marvel anything.
Yeah.
Mr. Gore, how excited are you going forward with Kang in the multiverse and everything?
It doesn't seem to have the weight of Thanos. Thanos, as a cosmic Marvel villain, I think. Kang is also technically a cosmic Marvel villain. It seems like, as much as I do really like Jonathan Majors' performance, I just don't think it has the weight of Thanos. It doesn't have I don't think we understand even Kang's goal. It's to rule with a bunch of like stormtroopers whose faces look like you picked it up at a Lamps Plus. I don't know what the goal is. I understood what Thanos' goal was. He had 2 goals. One was to collect all the Infinity Stones, which was a thread throughout Marvel's Phase 1, 2, and 3. And then upon collection of those stones, become the most powerful being in the galaxy, so he could wipe out half of life in the galaxy as a way to save resources. Almost a villain whose end goal you could understand. You could say, well, I get that. I don't understand sometimes when they just sort of a villain's overall goal is simply to, well, I just want to rule everything. Well, what's fun about that? Anyone that's ever been in a managerial position knows how little fun it is to rule over anything. It sucks.
Well, they have that beautiful scene in Superman 2 where Zod's getting bored, right? Because he's your dominion over all you rule, as I was the day before and the day before. Yeah,
exactly.
That. It's like...
So I don't understand the Thanos didn't want to rule. He had a goal, which was, in a way, it could be argued he wanted to help save the galaxy in some form. As it is, it didn't turn out how he thought. And
he succeeded, and then he went to become a farmer. And that's what happened.
I think there's something more poetic about Thanos. Like, Infinity War is so great, and it's because of Josh Brolin as Thanos. I don't know, as much as Jonathan Majors is very good, I'll admit, he doesn't, I don't understand what his goal is. And he seems to be a villain that, he's got to yell and get angry. And I always feel like people like that are kind of weak. The scarier people are ones that just like Thanos,
have control.
He almost felt kind of sad. It's like, well, I have to do this. Like, you're in my way, so I guess I'll kill you. But he didn't kill people like willy-nilly. I think he could have killed all the Avengers on that planet with Tony Stark. He could have killed everybody and, didn't, just sort of like, all right, I just need to get this thing and leave. So see you later. So I don't know. Thanos just a much more layered, interesting villain. We've only seen Kang get introduced and not as interesting. So if there are complex layers, I haven't seen them yet. Especially when you compare him to Thanos, who had like a reasonable goal, just ruling the galaxy. That is a cartoon villain. Which Palpatine, cartoon villain, right? But it's, if you watch like the Robot Chicken animated show, the episodes that feature Palpatine like in his office taking calls, having meetings, it's funny because it's like, well, that's probably what the Emperor would do. He'd be more of an asshole about it. But that Robot Chicken thing is hysterical. And it's like, so I don't get like I think that's a kind of villain that's interesting 30, 40 years ago. I want to rule the galaxy. It's like, all right, but why? And that's what made Thanos such a great villain, is that he had reason. You understood the reasons, like, oh, I get it from his point of view why he wants to do this. I still think it's horrible, but I understand his motivation, right? He's seen dark things, and he sees the way to save the galaxy is to wipe out half of life as a way to, quote, save the galaxy.
And that's where the stemming of the ruling of the galaxy is. It's a form of control, because the villain is anti-chaotic, even though the very act of them trying to control brings about chaos. But that's what they want. Like Emperor Ming, he rules Mongo because it's the only way it's stable. And he thinks he's the only one keeping it stable. And then Flash Gordon comes in to threaten that stability. And that's where your conflict comes. And he's also trying to expand that. So every time he sees a planet, he's like, either I will destroy it or I will rule it. And the effort is to basically, if he wipes it out, he's still got control. And if he rules it, he has even more control and more subjects to further allow him to expand his control. That's where you get into the depth of the cartoon villain of ruling the galaxy. The problem is that there haven't been any competent writers and creatives within Marvel for the last phase and now this one to even explore those options and make them understandable and threatening and demand the urgency of our heroes to combat.
Yes. So yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I think the audience it doesn't seem to have the weight or the gravitas of Thanos or the urgency, because we knew as soon as Thanos got those Infinity Stones, we knew that he was all powerful, and wasn't much of a battle once he got all of them, right? It just pretty quick. So what is Kang trying to do? He sat there forever in this quantum realm and couldn't fix that energy source because he couldn't get to it because he didn't have Pym particles. I find it hard to believe that he waited decades to have Ant-Man fall into his lap so he could use him as a pawn, dangling the death of his daughter to go into this area to get his energy source thing. It was
the amount of power that he had. You'd think he'd be able to reverse engineer or discover or make his own form of Pym particles. I mean, that MODOK guy did that very thing for Yellow Jacket.
Yeah. MODOK, who was terrible.
See, that would have been made more sense. And I haven't seen the film, so I can't comment on how it goes. But I hate that point when you have that in a movie. It's like the only way this thing works is if somebody randomly does something out of the blue. And it's like it's so contrived. Like, you're right, but like it would have made more sense had they had MODOK already trying to do it for him, and him failing, and basically MODOK, accidentally saying something about Pym, or is the only one who can really do this. And then he has a motivation, right? Like, that's the difference. Is you got to give him some kind of motivation. You can't just happen, because otherwise it's just circumstantial, and it's like, okay, you're just lucky they did that, I guess. Like,
they are constantly breaking their own rules, and they don't even do it in creative ways. And I counted no less than seven different contrivances in Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania. This happens because plot needs it. Because we didn't write the story very well to begin with. Yeah. And again, they wasted they wasted MODOK, in my opinion. They've wasted so much stuff.
What about Kang? Did they waste him? And how interested are you for the rest of Phase 5?
I think I answered this question. I have no interest in the coming films. The only thing that could interest me is a new Spider-Man film. But absent that, I'm out. I've been out on Marvel now for a while. I think the Eternals permanently poisoned me, because you would think that the Eternals would fight against Thanos just because it's in their programming to preserve all life that they possibly can so that they can sprout another Celestial. But hey, I mean, I could go through all the problems from Phase 4 through this first film in Phase 5 and tell you there's no saving any of this now, because nobody cares.
Script. Is there any saving any of this?
Oh, of course. Always a form of saving it. When you have new management, everything that comes in, you can always restart, reboot, redo, renew. Listen, there's a reason things go bad. It's because bad people get involved and they do something. And then if they're gone and good people come involved, they will save it and they will make something new. There's no such thing as a truly dead franchise. It's just waiting for someone to come in and give it a new life in anything. Like they will find a way. If they see the chance for money in it and they think that they can actually make a lot more, yes, we will probably get a remake and a franchise of the Black Hole series from 1982. Like there's nothing is sacred or will be protected from it, and it's just the way the industry is. So like, yes, you can save it or restore it or revive it. Will it happen anytime soon? Probably not, but it will happen eventually.
Tom, after hearing all your thoughts, you haven't even seen Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Do you think, based on the sounds of it and what you observe, is Phase 5 off to a good start? Is there any salvaging this?
No, this is a horrible kickoff. I mean, I don't know if Ant-Man was necessarily the movie I would have used to kick off this phase anyway, and I don't think that was their original plan, but it doesn't freaking matter at this point. Like, I have nothing but apathy has kind of set in, but I mean, script's right. I mean, I'm getting to the point where I'm like, it's time to just reboot, right? It's like, you've crushed yourself under the weight of this idea. You tried it. It works only so far. Now you know how far you can push it. And I mean, granted, there's other things they could have done, but it's too late. Too little too late at this point. I don't even give a shit about the X-Men or Fantastic Four anymore. Outside of Deadpool or Guardians, I don't give a crap about anything they've got on the roster. So, and to me, Guardians is like just to finish off the trilogy, because that's been more self-contained anyway. So whatever, and Deadpool is self-contained. So
as for me, I think that there is salvation. I don't think there's any need to reboot everything, but they do have to get out of where they are right now. I don't think the multiverse saga is going to work. I do not think that Kang works at all. I've already put this in my video on it. Jonathan Majors, yeah, he's fine. He does the best that he can, but the problem is the writing. Culture was able to spot 7 contrivances. I'm sure there's at least that many. No one is really written well. You have actors that shine because of their own ability, but not because of the scripts, and that is what betrays John Majors the most here. He really has nothing to work with. He's written as a clown and a cartoon villain, which I think is intentional, because it was, I remember him once saying when he was cast in conjunction with Loki season 1 that his background from clowning was a big part of why he was chosen for the role, which to me is not a great start. Not much gravitas there. So you need a change of pace, change of people behind the scenes. Get out of this whole Kang multiverse universe drivel. Find some way to get out of it. Take it to street level. Do like Daredevil. Do some Deadpools. Do some Spider-Man, and then gradually use the Fantastic Four to go cosmic again. Maybe with Annihilus. That's how you fix it, in my book. But the way they're doing right now. Yeah, carry on, Chris.
It doesn't matter. These movies have already been announced. The train's left the station. Any sort of desire on your part as a fan to just say they need to reboot it, irrelevant. It's not happening. They've already announced at least what the slate is. There will be some, rearranging chairs on the deck of the Titanic, but it's not changing. We're committed to this. I mean, you can see it all the way, phase 5 and 6, and you see where this is all leading. So we're stuck with it. That's the way it is. Can they make some course corrections during it? Sure. But what you're getting is what you're getting. You can look at all the movies scheduled. There are some open slots. The Fantastic Four, I think, will change things, but I don't really have faith that the current people running things will be able to do a Fantastic Four that's accurate, at least to the comic book, and will also resonate with a modern audience. I don't know how they thread that needle, because they also feel
my problem too.
I think they feel too obligated to, basically cater to the modern audience rather than the people who've been reading these things for decades, as
what's
kids.
Ironic is that, what's ironic is that what they say the modern audience, it's actually not true, because the modern audience is rejecting this. So we don't know what audience they're catering to. That's the question, right?
That's my point. I don't know how much. I mean, look, they moved the Marvels, which is already shot, by the way. And I think I've pointed out several times that Alan Ings saw their little teaser trailer and scene, and he just looked at it and said, it's a show for young girls that should be on Disney Plus. And don't be surprised if that movie plays in theaters. They spin it that it's a hit, and then it shows up on Disney Plus in a short window. Just prepare for that. But nothing's going to change. As much as we can sit here and bitch about it, it's not going to change. This is what's happening. I mean, you're going to see things like maybe the Echo and Riri Williams Ironheart show maybe those will get canned. And there was an article, I'm sure you guys went over it, suggesting
that they're getting delayed till next year at the very least.
Delayed or pulling back, and I think that's wise. I mean, there's too much of a good thing, but any hope that things will change, you can make course corrections, but they've committed to this. And I think that Feige has laid this out where he's planned it without the people who really got him into the position that he's in. And by that, I mean a very successful phase 1, 2, and 3. That decade was magical. It will not be repeated. And some of the key players who were part of the, the architects of that plan, Jon Favreau, James Gunn, the Russo brothers, are not as actively involved in Marvel anymore. It's all on Kevin Feige.
We're missing the checks and balance guy in Perlmutter too.
Perlmutter, yes.
You also got Joe Johnston. Sorry,
Joe Johnston was another.
Joe Johnston, Perlmutter. Yeah, these are key people who helped build that Marvel brand to what it is. That like got it to this place of like, oh my God, a decade, the 22 movies leading to this ultimate climax. I mean, they're not going to repeat Endgame. It's not going to happen without the spine, sort of the story spine of Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, and their relationship. Without that, I mean, what is the thread? That's why I look at like when Simu Liu was trending on social media because of this moronic comment. I was like, oh, I forgot that they made a movie called Shang-Chi. I completely forgot. That was so many movies ago, right? And there's even that little button scene at the end with him and Awkwafina's character talking to Captain Marvel and Bruce Banner. And what was the point of that? Are we going to see that pay off in the Marvels? I don't know. I don't really care. I mean, but it's just this is where we're at. We're stuck with it. And, there may be some highlights here and there. I think Guardians 3 should be pretty good, although that poster really got me worried. With Karen Gillan, basically looks like
we actually let's get into that because we have a question here. Callum Lyle, he wonders for $2 is Nebula trans in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 now?
I mean, she's
Mr. Gore. What is up with that poster?
Well, it's possible that her head gets put on a different body. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that happened in science fiction or fantasy. That's happened. One of my favorite movies, that the head that wouldn't die. Or the brain that wouldn't die. By the way, they recently did a remake of that movie. Some indie filmmakers remade that film in that style, that sort of 1950s cheesy acting and whatnot. It's actually pretty good. But I love that film. So something could, and then maybe, is he making a comment? Maybe. Is he not? Maybe. But she looks like a dude. The body.
This may be more someone in the marketing department.
I was going to say, I'm not even sure James Gunn has anything to do with this. And there's another thing that sticks out to me too, is not, there's no way that's Chris Pratt's body. He is much more built than that. So I'm wondering if this is a case of, now you might be one of the few people who actually knows what I'm referring to when I say this.
Is Groot's body either.
It is definitely not Groot's body.
I think it's a complete fake.
No, because that's Elm and he's Oak. No, but Chris, you might remember the whole Pretty Woman controversy on the poster. If anybody in a panel does, it'd have to be you besides me. Okay, well, you don't. Well, that was when everybody realized that was definitely not Julia Roberts on the poster of Pretty Woman, the famous poster.
Right. Okay, yeah.
And they found out it was, because it was a body double, and they just put her head and his head on two completely different people. So maybe it's a case.
Richard Gere's body either?
Nope.
Because he was in a suit.
Nope, it's not Richard Gere either. It's two completely different people. I actually showed the image of the original image.
That happens all the time in posters and marketing materials. It happens all the time. So it's fairly common, but it's just so blatant that it's a wimpier version of Peter Quill and a more manly version of Nebula's body, especially in light of, like, if you just put photos of her character side by side with that picture, it's embarrassing. It's just another not so secret hidden agenda.
I think he's just a bad artist.
Well, I mean, an artist, that's a photo shoot. I mean, look, if you're going to put the head on a woman, maybe hire a woman. So,
maybe they thought that Nebula that it was a guy because it didn't have hair.
Those are
I think that this is someone.
The heads are all drawn
in the marketing department that basically has gone rogue, because you are right, Chris, in that it's a photo shoot, but it's not a photo shoot in that everyone is in the room together. On the contrary, like the way that these posters are made is that you do in the individual stills with all the actors, and they don't have to do their shoots at the same day, and then they're put together in Photoshop, which is why you have like the same basic pictures recurring in multiple posters with slightly different stances and stuff like that. Everyone who wants some fun, go and check like the movie posters with a team like this over the last few years. Like, for instance, check out the original Avengers poster. That's a good example. Just look at all the different constellations that came in. with the different characters in different places at the poster. I really liked what they did with the Hulk in that original Avengers poster, where they put him meant that he had to kind of be like Godzilla size to have like that scale. But anyway, so here it was a photo shoot, but obviously the actors were never together. And if someone in marketing decided to go rogue and put in a little bit of the not so secret agenda, because the marketing department at Disney reportedly is full of people like that, I wouldn't be surprised that this is something that James Gunn never saw or even signed off on. He might be furious at this.
It depends. People like Christopher Nolan are very involved in the marketing when it comes to the trailer and what you're allowed to use and the poster. I think it just depends on the director. I would expect that James Gunn would probably at least get run by him, but that's also, it's not someone rogue, because a rogue person in a corporation, it's enabled by a lot of different people, because there are way too many sign-offs that have to happen for one rogue person to have an influence. It's definitely just a group of people that are letting it by. I think it just may end up being a plot thing in the movie. It may end up being that Nebula, her head is put on a dude's body. I mean, it looks like Sean Gunn.
Oh, in that case, you can kiss.
You know, it's funny you say that, Chris, because that's exactly the first thought I had. Is I'm like, it's like they put it on Sean Gunn's body.
Yeah, it could be Sean Gunn.
It's weird.
Like a head swap from like Mars Attacks.
I mean,
well, I'm not sure if it's in the movie proper, but I'm like on the day when they needed the poses, like they just had Sean sit in
everybody, and then
yeah, no, I'm not kidding either. Like totally, and like I think Chris might be right, and then whoever did the airbrushing paint, because Paul is right too. They did do some manipulation with it, but these are actual photos that have been made to look like they've been painted. They're actually real photos. You can tell. But I wonder if then at that point they just didn't manipulate her like they should have to make it look like a female instead. Because other than Chris not being as swole as he's supposed to, I mean, really the rest of it is fine, I guess, for the most part.
I think everyone's spending too much time on this poster.
I
well,
think I'm not disagreeing with that.
Talking, then mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, subliminal imagery in marketing is like that's a staple, dude. Like, there's so much stuff that you could, once you become aware of that stuff. That's why that Marvel's poster with Captain Marvel and Photon and Ms. Marvel is.
See if you can bring that up. The Ms. Marvel.
Oh,
it is.
That one is clear.
Somebody drew lines on it. It's right there in front of you. And
let me
what's
see
so
if I can
funny
get
is,
that specific one. Yeah.
I don't want to say who, but I was in a group chat of people, and none of the women in the group chat recognized what it was. And it's normally because that's a view that they don't normally see.
Well,
does that make sense?
This is true. It's like us guys, we are the ones who actually do get that view.
We get that view.
I'm not
so
gonna,
it's like obvious. So, but I feel like that was, it's very, I mean, look, my prediction, Captain Marvel comes out as gay in that movie. That's what's going to happen.
This is what you're talking about, right?
Yep.
No, there's a different one.
There's
It's
a more
literally
subtler
this
one.
line.
Okay, well, there's a few different ones.
There's a more of a subtle one. That's like, yeah, it's way more subtle if you just draw the lines. It's in Gary from Nerdrotic's feed.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
But yeah, check that one out, because it's more interesting, because it just, all it is a couple lines, and when you just draw a couple lines, it's like right there, very obvious. But no, my prediction, I'm saying it now, I may not be the first. Captain Marvel comes out as gay in the film, had a relationship with Photon's mom, because I feel like that's kind of where that was leading.
So if you break down a photon, you get a pi meson and a muon.
Yeah, and also, hasn't Kevin Feige already said that we're going to have a gay character? It's like, it was always Captain Marvel. I mean, like, to me, it's kind of obvious. So I actually don't care or have a problem with it either. It's just like, oh, okay, cool. You know, I mean, I never was super enamored by that character anyways. So it always seems like that's where she leaned. So why not just fully go for it? You know? Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's that one too. But all the girls in the Toxic Femme are pointing out how it's basically shaped like a vagina either way. So yeah, like,
well,
it's like you don't need the lines to point to it. But it's interesting that Brie is the butthole.
Yes.
Brie is the butthole of the team.
In this case, yes, she is. In the other one, she would have been the hole of stuff.
Yeah, depends a little bit on exactly where you place the drawing, but I will say I do prefer this to like the all-seeing eye that we have, or like the eye of Horus that we have gotten subliminally in most of the, or actually pretty much all the Marvel posters since the original Captain Marvel. This is a huge step in a better direction, you ask me. And for those that haven't seen it, just do yourself a favor, go back to the older Marvel Power posters and look for the all-seeing eye. It's there, staring right.
Now it's all about the JJ. But let's get into some of these super chats before we get into the Roald Dahl news, before we lose everybody. Star Wars community says Phase 5 is horrible writing, pandering, and Kevin Feige. I think we got this one already, but that's the one that got us onto the topic at hand. Philip M says, good morning, panel and Chato. What are the main reasons behind this seeming failure of Phase 5, and how can Marvel learn from this experience and improve their future productions? Well, basically, we've talked ad nausea about this specific topic, but I guess if we need to encapsulate it, what's killed the Marvel, the failure of Phase 5 so far has just been Phase 4, and that is an overabundance of crap, nothing good, allowing the politics to trump everything else, bringing in characters that nobody gives a crap about that were already replacement characters in the comics. So like there's many other reasons we could get into as far as how can they improve. Well, we just actually talked a lot about that. Script Doctor specifically got into that more.
And also let's just there was a follow-up from Philip who said, and can you give more practical answers beyond get woke, go broke?
Well, clearly the main thing is stick with the characters that people know, or at least don't disregard them so quickly, right? Like, I mean, we were talking about this last night on the wrap up. It was brought up, about how basically kids, when they go into a comic store or go into a bookstore, if they want to buy some comics, sure, they can want an Iron Man book, but Iron Man's no longer Iron Man, it's Ironheart. You can ask for a Hawkeye book, but it ain't Hawkeye, it's Kate Bishop. And that's kind of what they're moving into on the shows and movies. But prior to that, a kid who wanted to go see Captain America in the comic book shop, at that point when the movies were coming out, they were turning him into a freaking Nazi.
Yeah.
Well, that's one aspect of it. The other part too is that Disney is hiring certain creatives that are very green. They don't have a lot of experience. They don't have a lot of influence. And as a result, they have to do what the production wants. So if you have no creativity, and you're not paying for creativity, you're not going to be receiving much of a lucrative, sales or lucrative, an interest from the audience to see what you're doing. There is nothing wrong on principle to say that an Eternals movie or a Shang-Chi movie or a WandaVision show or a Black Widow movie could work. It can work if it's written well and it's done by creative people and they do something interesting with those characters. There is nothing wrong with handing off the torch. But the thing is, they're not putting the effort in because they're not equipped to actually do the work for it. They're relying so much on the brand that they are assuming that the audience will do the work for them and just watch these movies and not realize that, no, like with every film, it's somebody's first. You got to put your best foot forward and make it the best it can be.
Well, you know what? To add to that a little script, I mean, they're leaning heavily into derivative characters that were failures in comic book form. So why did we skip past? And again, this is a conversation that's always brought up. Why did we skip past 40 years of source material and lean into these derivatives? And then you don't have anybody that's more creative than the people who created these failed derivatives coming in to write them. So just to add to what you're saying.
I think it has to do with the fact that Disney doesn't want to spend any more money,
which is nuts.
Because I mean, it all strikes me as like, oh, we have brand new characters that are owned by Marvel. The people that created them have sold the rights to Marvel, so there aren't any character creation rights, like in comparison to, say, the original Avengers teams and all the comics that are in the 20th century. So now that Marvel has all this control of it, they don't have to pay any additional fees on it. So they're trying to invest and push those so that they can retain more profit. And the only reason I would suspect a studio would do that is because they probably are worried that they don't have the money to sustain themselves any further because they're not making as much as they profess to be making.
They're not making money. They lost.
We're kind of learning that over the years. Like there's no reason to deny to go towards, say, a Riri Williams Ironheart show or property and ignore Iron Man, or at least like not even entertain the idea of recasting the role. It just doesn't make much sense. And the other part too is you can tell that they don't care, because if they cared, they would try to make Riri Williams not an insufferable character in her introduction. They would actually look at the comments and be like, oh, they screwed up here. We can do this better and right and make people actually want to see this character, and yet they don't.
No.
So that comes down to the fact that they don't care about trying to make a good entertainment or good product. They are relying on the brand. It's just like when Nike and Adidas and Reebok had their peak moments in the 90s, and then at the turn of the century, you started noticing, hey, the quality of this stuff is actually really bad. Why am I buying it? And because it wasn't about the quality anymore, it was about the name recognition. And that's where Disney's kind of been in for the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, and that's exactly what they want. Even Kathleen Kennedy said it herself. She wanted the Star Wars brand to be just like Marvel, where you have to see everything, right? And that's almost her exact words. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but that's pretty much exactly how she put it. But you're right, Script, and I think we've had two different versions of how we can see how this can go down. We had the early Marvel years, and we had the Snyderverse, right? So we see if you go by one creative's vision, it doesn't work. We've seen if you have a producer who has a lot of visionaries who support him, it works. But once you start carving out those people, those visionaries, it doesn't work so much. So that's where I do believe, and Andre pointed out too, and some other people, that was kind of a chop at Marvel when James Gunn said he's going to let the directors kind of dictate where some of these things go in the future, even though he does have an overarching idea. So I hope, and fingers crossed, at least for fans of DC, that James Gunn learned between what worked, what didn't work on both sides. And he's going to take all those things into consideration going forward with the DC universe. Now, some of these things I can see being a good idea. Some of these things I can see being a horrible idea, but we have to wait and see how it pans out. Well, but I do believe that's the bigger problem, is you have situations where the Edgar Wright situation with Ant-Man is a great example of how between the time that he initially signed up to make the movie and the time he actually got around to making the movie, the vision that he had did not jive anymore with the MCU, which is understandable to a point. But at the same time, at what point does it become more about what Kevin Feige is doing as opposed to we're losing the creative edge? And it's all about just the Marvel brand. And I think that's what you're talking about too, as well, Script, where it's more about one thing just like the other. It doesn't matter if it's good or not, as long as it has the Marvel label on it.
But you can't get away from the fact that it's all been muddied up. I mean, you had, what was it, Tom, 19 different projects in Phase 4?
Well, and that's the big deal. And I want to find that graphic so hardcore. Yeah. If somebody has it, please send it to me. I lost it again.
But just to summarize, though, what it said was that where hours of content is concerned, there's more hours of required watching content produced in Phase 4 than in Phases 1, 2, and 3 combined. And that's a problem.
Yeah, and they muddied up all those waters with all these new characters because they wanted to rush them to the forefront so quickly. And now here we are with these muddied waters with these terribly developed characters that were rushed into, in front of audiences, so much so that they've actually put a couple of these projects on indefinite hold for Phase 5, which would include Echo and I think Ironheart, at least according to some folks in the audience.
Note Action.com even says for $2, Phase 5. Don't you mean Phase Dive? Which is kind of on point there, actually, because things are not great.
But that subliminal image that we just looked at, that's not something that we haven't seen before in marketing, but it does give us clear indication of where we're headed. We are headed towards A-Force, which was another failed concept. So we're heading into Marvel failure. Phase Dive is that, and I don't know what was Phase 6 called. Somebody came up with a brilliant name for it, but
Phase sucks.
Yeah. Well, we're headed for a complete disaster that was indicated in Phase 4. So Phase 5, again, you lean into these derivative characters that are focused strictly on identitarian ideologies and neo-Marxist concepts, and you're going to end up with less people buying into what you're making, and then there's no financial upside for it. And Disney's going to have to wake up to that because their theme parks aren't going to keep them afloat forever.
Yeah, and Mecha J also said on that note for $5, the only fatigue that's plaguing the MCU throughout Phase 4 is bad writing fatigue. And there is absolutely a point to that. And then let's see what else you had to say about Marvel, and also on Phase 5. Cinema Journal says for $4.99, I have a theory. What if we're building up to the redemption of Wanda? Maybe she comes back as the only power that can defeat Kang. That sounds more plausible than I would like it to.
Yeah, actually, that does. That's a pretty solid theory. I don't know if Disney Marvel is competent enough to pursue that. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. And David Lutz says for $5, if the energy core got real big, why didn't Kang just build a real big ship around the really big core? Problem solved. Dumbass, you guys keep me sane. Kang
There's
was
logic to that.
dumbass. Yeah.
He built a city. Why couldn't he build a giant ship for the?
Yeah,
for
he had the magic suit. As long as that's powered up, he can do anything. His power comes from the suit.
Now you're sounding like my wife. She wrecks everything. You sit there and you watch Lord of the Rings with her, and then she goes, "What's with the horses?" Shut up! Like, go away.
Well, your wife is obviously a sensible woman. And also, before we move on, everyone, we have more than 2,000 watching. Please smash that like, everyone. And before we move on with the super chats, we only have Chris Gore for a limited time here. So, Chris, before you have to go, let's get into the next topic here, which is Roald Dahl. Because what has happened is that Penguin, the publisher of the Roald Dahl book, certainly in the UK, have decided that he's a little bit problematic now. So they hired some people who specialize in diversity and inclusion and sensitivity, basically censors, to go through them and to rewrite them, to make them more acceptable to modern audiences. Now, many in the chat have been very curious about your thoughts on this. So, Mr. Gore, how familiar are you with Roald Dahl, and how excited are you to check out these newly approved versions of his books?
Well, I'm not excited about it. I grew up reading Roald Dahl when I was a kid. I read Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
It was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yeah, they keep they change
the movies, Willy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I read the sequel to Great Glass Elevator. It's brilliant. I love that Roald Dahl, as a so-called writer of literature for children, never spoke down to kids. He famously didn't really like kids. So I think in many ways he's like Willy Wonka, that character. But Great Glass Elevator scarred me as a kid because there's a weird element of that where, his grandparents are made younger through these pills. They take too many of them and they become unpeople, which is vaguely described in the book. And I that concept always haunted me as a kid. I think I read it in 3rd grade. I was a voracious reader as a kid, not just comic books, but a lot of science fiction. In any case, I love Roald Dahl. Love Roald Dahl. As I said, I think his strength was never wrote down to children. He was very matter of fact, and he built a world in your head that was fantastical. I saw both last night. I watched Paul. I watched your video on this topic, and then I watched Robert Meyer Burnett. Great video, by the way. Robert Meyer Burnett did a long stream where he cited specific examples and how they were rewritten, and this is horrifying.
Yep.
This is out and out censorship for no reason than some sensitive children at a company, activists, are changing this. And I will never buy or support this. People need to push back against this. This is horrific 1984 Brave New World bullshit. It's horrifying because if they can do it to a children's book, Roald Dahl, they can do it to history books. They can do it to anything. And Penguin is a respected company. I almost did a book with Penguin. I've done books with St. Martin's Press and Random House. So I've worked with publishers before. And one of the tricks I learned is most books, if you sign a book deal, are delivered late. They're generally a year late. And almost by design, a lot of authors turn their stuff in late because they don't want the publisher to have an opportunity to make changes. That's a thing that authors do. Okay. So it's a pro tip. And I learned that also when I wrote for other publications, like for the Hollywood Reporter or other like magazines and whatnot. I always noticed that they would kind of change my writing, which is fine. It's within their right to do if I'm writing for, a media outlet like a magazine. The editor will kind of, reshape the article to be the voice of that particular magazine, whether it's like some music magazine or arts magazine. Okay, whatever. But I learned that if the later I turned it in, the less of an opportunity they had to change it. But this is Roald Dahl, an author revered for decades that I grew up reading back in the 70s. Okay. And someone who's had, his works turn into films, animated films, beloved for this is horrific. When Robert Meyer Burnett was going through the examples, it was horrifying. Here was the original statement, here's the rewritten one, and a lot of it is just the to me, the narcissism, the ego of a person that thinks they're entitled to do that. Fuck that person, fire that person. I would love to find out the names of the people responsible and the name of the person in middle management who allowed it. Because here I think I actually don't even blame the sort of wokerati at a lot of these companies. I blame the enablers. I blame the people in middle management that don't see a problem and fire somebody because things are bad. Things are bad. Let me share a quick story. Okay. And I have a lot more to say about this. I'll talk about on my Wednesday Film Threat live stream, 1 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Eastern. I'm getting in my plug early, Andre.
Yeah, go for it.
But please listen to this story, and it's very interesting. So you have reported on that you need to come back to the office. Disney is saying to their employees, you got to come back to the office. No more of this like working at home nonsense. You got to come back to the office, and you need to work for a minimum 4 days a week. You're in the office. You just got to come back. And not just Disney, other companies are saying this. Get back to the office. So as Disney is preparing for people to come back into the office, and the story was told me from a friend firsthand, there began a debate as people come back to the office. Well, what kind of breakfast cereal should we provide, on demand for people that are in the office? Breakfast cereal, they have snacks. I mean, that's fairly common for big companies. What kind of breakfast cereals should we provide? And the conversation among the people in that meeting devolved into what kind of privilege that you enjoyed based on the types of cereal you grew up eating. So, for example, if you were someone who was lucky enough to enjoy Lucky Charms or Captain Crunch, you grew up in a privileged household because you had more money. But if you ate no brand Raisin Bran, you were poor. So this entire meeting, literally to decide what breakfast cereal to have in the office, turned into an equity bullshit conversation amongst people working at Disney. And these are the types of people that like they contribute nothing to the company. They contribute nothing. Those are the people that should be among the 7,000, and it should probably be a lot more, that need to be let go. If you're wasting company time deciding on what types of cereal and then turning that into a conversation about privilege, you're a waste of money. So, and look, I have more stories like this. A friend of mine, the latest WGA meeting, you would be interested in this script. The latest WGA meeting was a shit show about the strike. And I can't go into it right now. I need to make sure my friend will let me tell some of these stories, but it's, we're fucked. Unless there's a huge amount of people that are going to finally stand up and push back. And this was the concern of my friend. The things that were spoken aloud at this meeting are the only way to stop it is some sort of revolution to push back, is to just say, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Nobody says no. and you have so many inexperienced people elevated to positions they're not ready for, that it is destroying this industry. It is destroying the industry of film and entertainment. It shouldn't surprise any of us that Steven Spielberg went right to Tom Cruise, hugged the guy, and said, you saved the business. You saved movie theaters, because he made a movie with broad appeal rather than stick to some agenda.
Well, yeah, but then, you know, Judd Apatow comes off and shoots off his mouth at the DGA, you know, attacking Cruise.
You know what? Cruise can take it. He's
Cruise
the
can
man
take it
who
because
was
Cruise
got
has
the
made
$1 billion
money.
movie. He
Yeah.
can take it. You know, he's the one that cares about he's the one that's thinking about the audience, not thinking about the peers. A lot of times you see the people, they think only about their peers. Judd Apatow wants to be seen to be progressive and be seen to be virtuous. And so he acts accordingly rather than thinking about the people whose dwindling income is going less and less toward entertainment, because you have a class of people that have been ostracized and seen their paychecks dwindle. Look, I live in Pasadena, California. I feel fortunate. I'm sort of in this like little oasis away from nonsense. You know, having said that, I went to Trader Joe's recently, and one basket of food with just essentials was $80.
Yep.
I mean, $100 is the new $20.
Yep.
It's just, it's unbelievable. And I've definitely changed and curbed certain aspects of my lifestyle because of this. And there's no thought of like somebody who works for a living and they just want to go to be entertained, and they're being lectured about what an asshole they are because they don't hold certain views. And it's not as if Hollywood hasn't always been lecturing people, but they've done it in a way that's like, hey, here's a story. It's a parable. Take away from it what you will. Learn something or not, or just be entertained. There are lessons in Top Gun Maverick, but they're pretty universal messages, you know?
Well, and the difference was then they used to just make a movie like Milk, right? They wouldn't hide it. It was just like, we're going to make this movie. This is about this thing, or Philadelphia, or what have you, regardless of if it was good or not. My point is they would, going into that movie what you're getting, right? I don't expect going into a Marvel film to be preached at about socialism is my fucking point, right? Like, that's the big difference there. If I go into a movie like that, I expect to maybe have an issue about something or other or whatever. Like, that's not going to surprise me then.
Well, hey, Chris, I'm on board with your idea of getting rid of the people that are pushing back on this. There's 23 signatories at Disney right now that are petitioning against this change and forcing them back to work 4 days a week. I think those are 2,300 people you may not need anymore.
Yeah.
You know, Amazon right now is trying to get people to come back for 3 days a week in their corporate offices. They're struggling to get that done. You know, and it's not lost on me that most of these companies are based out of what state? California.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I just miss the days when the last time we had a decent film about climate change was Waterworld.
Yeah, I mean, Waterworld was a dumb, fun action movie, and you know,
wasn't Snowpiercer also kind of the same?
Yeah, I think that might have been, and I think there was that 2012 movie. No, that wasn't about environmentalism.
No, 2012 was just
what's the one? No, Day After Tomorrow or whatever it was. The other Emmerich one.
Right. Yeah. Look,
but even then, they were just for fun, right? Like, I wasn't like trying to preach at you or nothing.
I don't know. Al Gore is, guilty of all this.
But
that's a different
before
kind of movie.
but before we lose Chris here, we have a super chat for you. Action.com says for $10, Chris, or someone on this panel wants to dab their toe into short films. Any advice? Any Academy Award shorts you want to share? Any shorts in general that the public should see?
Yeah, so a couple things. One, just make a movie. You know, my feeling is I see a lot of filmmakers that they want to shoot for the stars and be too ambitious. If you can make a 1-minute short that's interesting, I mean, and that tells a story, then you can make a 5-minute one, then you can make a 10-minute one. Although my general review of every short film I've ever seen is it wasn't short enough. If you're going to make a 30-minute short film, you may as well make a feature at that point. So I say stick to under 10 minutes, and you got to walk before you got to crawl before you can walk. You got to walk before you can run. So start short. You should also watch a lot of shorts. I actually saw this past weekend all the live action shorts that are nominated for Oscars. I liked about 2 of them. There were 2 that were decent. The best one is one called I believe it's called An Irish Goodbye. And it was a very funny Irish sense of humor comedy that's in the sort of vein of Banshees of Inisherin, about two brothers who lose their mother, who then they have their ashes in an urn, but she leaves behind a list of the 100 things she wants to do before she dies. And so the two brothers attempt to do all those things with the urn, and it's hilarious.
Did they cut off her fingers?
They didn't do that, but it's a very dark comedy, sweet, funny. I thought that was great. Irish Goodbye, best of the live action shorts. The animated shorts are better. They're generally better. The one that I liked was at South by Southwest. It's called My Year of Dicks. And it's funny because there was a warning at the beginning of this. If there are any children in the audience, please leave now. This movie is intended for adults. And it's about a young woman kind of tells an animated story. This young woman, she's like 15 years old and wants to lose her virginity. And the sort of awkward situations she gets in trying to navigate sex at a young age. I mean, it's a comedy, and it's very, very well done. And then there was another movie that was a stop motion animated movie that is great. It's the title is incredibly long, but it has the words ostrich in it. And it's about a stop motion character that works in an office that suddenly becomes aware that he's a stop motion puppet and not really alive. And it's freaking weird and funny. Those two are great. So if this is playing, I know it's playing at AMC Burbank, the Burbank 8. You can look up this. It's put out by, I believe it's shorts.tv. You can watch all of these short films online. A lot of them are available some are available on YouTube. And check your listings for movie theaters near you. They roll out this program, and sometimes they'll do it at like 2 p.m. on a Saturday, so you can catch it. You will learn so much, and the way that the way that shorts get nominated for Oscars, it's an interesting process. So here's another piece of advice. There's a list of film festivals that are called Oscar qualifying, that if your movie wins as best short film at that particular festival, you then go into a pool of movies that are called Oscar qualified, right? So that then goes to a panel who then decides on the final nominations of 5 movies. So film festivals such as South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, or the Florida Film Festival in Orlando, those are all Oscar qualifying. So if you are lucky enough to get in that festival and lucky enough to win best short film at that festival, you're then qualified to be nominated for an Oscar. So it's still a large pool of movies, but you should look up. And I believe if you go to oscars.org, that list of film festivals is published on the website. So I know way too much about this. I'm sorry for my rambling, but I want to give ActionCom your $10 worth. And you should be watching Film Threat, or the Film Threat livecast on Wednesdays and Fridays, because we talk about this shit all the time. And we also have on guest filmmakers who walk us through this stuff. But that is where I would start. Make a 1-minute short film that tells a story. Not as easy as you think. It's not a TikTok. The people on TikTok are not making short films. They're confessing their mental illness for the most part.
I made a short
also
film.
I finished a video where I was talking with my son that he did not want to inherit my YouTube channel. That was Oscar level filmmaking.
That was also a very good
should-
short film. Yeah.
You should put it in for an Oscar.
There you go.
Yeah.
1 minute, eh?
I should put in my Batman one too, where he talks about guns.
And your Muslim uncle says, hour and a half late joke to Chris Gore. His prediction / desire for Ellie, pain.
Well, hey, your Muslim uncle, good to hear from you. Thank you for being a member to Midnight's Edge and supporting the channel. I'll say this. What I mean by pain is how you learn. This is why woke writing tends to fail and suck, is because they don't want to put characters through pain. Because pain is how you learn a lesson. Pain is how you grow. This is true in life. Don't touch a hot stove. You will feel pain. How do you learn not to touch it? By feeling pain. How do you teach a kid that they should get their homework done on time? By the idea that they fail, don't do their homework on time, and then they just from having raised kids, those of us who are parents here, I have a stomach ache. I don't want to go to school. often means I didn't finish my homework. I feel like I feel bad about it, guilty, and sick about it, and I don't want to go to school to be confronted and be accountable for my behavior. So what you do is failure and pain is kind of a part of things, and it's a part of storytelling. Any good storytelling. I mean, look, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indy doesn't win anything. He's constantly failing. I mean, you know, he's relentless, and that's why we admire him as a character. But in the end, he loses. But I think we always have an affinity for characters that fail. And what's so uninteresting about characters in a lot of these stories, and you could say like Mary Sue type characters, it's a really disingenuous way to tell a story to young women who may look up to those characters, because the lesson is you're awesome. The world doesn't know it yet. That's a terrible message for anyone, boy or girl, to hear. It's like, look, you want to succeed at something, you got to work hard, be disciplined, and experience pain. And that's what I meant by that comment. And this character of Ellie just seems to have things too easy. You know, she's using a gun. She's sort of not listening. Joel is an idiot, according to her. And it's tired. It's tired. I don't know if that's accurate to the game. I've only played about 3-4 hours of the game. But I don't find her character endearing in the television show. But what I hope is that's all a setup for her to learn. You know, I'm probably too optimistic or, you know, hopeful as a person. So I'm like, well, they'll fix it. You know, after Last Jedi, they're gonna stick the landing. And that third Star Wars sequel movie is just, it's gonna be amazing, and we're all gonna be in tears, and it'll be awesome. And it ends up being like a horrific embarrassment. By the way, wanted to point out, because I recently just saw the 25th anniversary in 3D version of Titanic in theaters. Rose DeWitt Bukater, or whatever her name is, in it, at the end of the movie, she's asked what her name is, and she says Rose Dawson. She takes on the name Dawson from Jack, who she met on the ship and had a dalliance with for 2 days, which is almost exactly like the ending of The Rise of Skywalker, where Rey is asked her name and she says Rey Skywalker. What was the point of her renaming herself? It's ridiculous. It was just
she didn't sleep with Luke.
I guess. I mean, Luke was an asshole to her, deservedly so. He tried to teach her some lessons. She couldn't quite get there. But it was just so funny. It's like, oh my God, J.J. Abrams ripped off Titanic. He ripped off Titanic's like that little button
and Endgame and everything else he could, because J.J. Abrams has no original ideas.
He is such a fraud. He should not. The fact that he was gifted all the goodwill of people who wanted to see Han, Luke, and Leia reunited in a Star Wars movie, and then didn't do that. He was gifted all the goodwill of Star Wars fans, and like many, I'm sure, Tom, you're among them. I'm out on Star Wars. I don't care. Kenobi was sort of the last vestiges of hope. I just couldn't get into Andor. I was like, okay, I get it. It's Les Mis, but you've lost me. I don't care. And I'm not looking forward to Mandalorian season 3.
Well, and I don't even have a problem with a Star Wars movie inadvertently or directly ripping off another film. I mean, Star Wars has been doing that since the beginning of time. Shit, the original Star Wars is loosely based on Hidden Fortress, for fuck's sake. I mean, that's nothing new. I didn't even mind Mandalorian borrowing from Lone Wolf and Cub. That to me is part of the DNA. Like, right. But Titanic? Like,
no, well, I
get what you're saying. Like, it's like, of all things you're gonna rip off, Titanic. No, and you're 100% right. They even have that ship going down, that big ass ship and everything.
I mean, I should do a video on it, but if you see those scenes back to back, they're so similar in the way that even they're shot. Like, it's this seminal moment. It's the character sort of coming to terms with where she's at, her place in the world or in the universe, and the response is sort of matter of fact. Someone asks her name, she says Rose Dawson, and Rey Skywalker. Very, very similar. It's a woman taking control of her identity and her future by claiming her own name. She chose to take that name. And it's, look, I saw it in a theater filled with critics who very much liked the Star Wars sequels, and people burst out laughing. They burst out laughing when Kylo Ren fell away and died, which was stupid. And then when she said Rey Skywalker, everyone burst out laughing there. I mean, it was it ends with laughter because it's so ridiculous and stupid. The fact that they didn't take Star Wars with some level of seriousness about the lore and the fans and what they would have liked. Look, we're still talking about it now, or at least I am.
Well, did those critics laugh at the I am the Sith and I am the Jedi lines, which are clearly the end game thing of, I'm inevitable, I am Iron Man?
I don't even know they made that connection. It was just so stupid. It's just so bad. It's, I've often said it's the biggest missed opportunity in the history of movies was that it should have been a home run. Should have been a home run. And Kathleen Kennedy lied to George Lucas to his face. And there's video of that. I'm sure you've seen it.
Oh, yeah.
And then went off and did whatever the hell she wanted to do with an agenda. And it's very interesting. It's just very interesting. And I hope that Hollywood goes down in flames. I hope that I almost think it's beyond saving at this point, especially from what I heard at this WGA meeting. The stories that I'm hearing from this meeting, this super secret meeting about whether they're going to strike or not. Holy shit, we're fucked.
They're going to strike.
Forget the strike. The strike.
Chris, can you elaborate on that?
I get what he's getting at.
How
please. For those who want to know out there.
I can't elaborate. I'm just saying. All I'm saying.
Okay, well, I'll extrapolate is that these fuckers are woker than fuck, and they ain't going nowhere.
That would be my extrapolation too.
The crux of it is there are a lot of people that have been hired in positions they're not ready for because they didn't go through a mentoring process or
basically they're all diversity hires.
Yeah. You gotta, as they say in the mafia, you gotta make your bones.
Yes.
And it's I'm hoping by Wednesday I can get some kind of okay to discuss some of these stories, but it's when you hear them like the Disney breakfast cereal story, it's gonna blow your mind. This is the level of stupid.
What I don't understand is that the previous writers' strike almost delivered a death blow to Hollywood. Yeah. It is barely crawling now. What is the logic?
Well, yeah, I have most of my friends that are screenwriters. They're just like, I'm just going to be a producer now because I don't want to deal with this nonsense. I'm just going to produce my own work.
Right.
Be a screenwriter and someone who raises funds or, transition to being a producer because the industry is just in such dire straits. Didn't this start with a question about Roald Dahl? Yeah, I'm upset by it. I'm pissed off. I'm angry about it, as everyone should be. But this isn't just a censorship like we're not going to carry this book in a library. I can almost understand the opposite side of that argument. I'll go, oh, okay, I get it. This shouldn't be for kids, or this is a thing. It's all right, maybe the community will decide if this is appropriate book to, lend out. I just think that first, there should be a whole books behind the counter that you need parents' permission to be able to take that book out. That's how that should work.
Like adult magazines, yes.
Yeah,
we actually got into a great discussion about this last night, and that's kind of what we boiled down to because Paul had brought up Tintin and the old Dr. Seuss thing from last year, and I said the problem I have is with the Dr. Seuss thing, they're canceling those specific books plus taking them out of publication. I say they shouldn't take them out of publication, but you can present them in a way where they're not for children, and it's basically like what Script is saying. You put them in a collection where they're clearly stated what they are, what they are, and they're sold in a way that is for historical preservation and aimed towards adults and not children. That's the way you do that. Same thing with the whole editions of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I wouldn't have an issue so much. Even Roald changed a few things in the book over the years. He changed the Oompa Loompas from being African pygmies to just being orange or whatever it was, like the movie, and stuff like that. But now they're going in and they are deciding what to change, and they're actually changing adjectives and descriptions and other forms of things. Like even Paul pointed out last night, they changed one of the characters was reading one author. Now they changed it to Jane Austen instead. It's like,
We'll
what the
get,
hell?
we'll get back
That's the
into
thing.
that, but culture has to leave. So before you do, Alf says, culture, please combine Alf and Flash for an emoji for Mikey's sake. And Liam
You're
Johnson
asking for a lot.
says, happy President's Day and late birthday to Casino.
Hey,
When was
happy
your birthday?
My birthday was in November, so I appreciate it.
Exactly. So,
I was gonna say.
I thought we already celebrated that.
Also, interestingly enough, it is kind of the birthday of the channel, I think, is maybe a couple
that
days
might
ago.
be.
Perhaps that's the reference.
That might be
but,
what he's
yeah.
referring to.
So
Culture,
Alf
real quick,
and-
before on your way out the door, how
Alf-
impressed are you with the cancellation of Roald Dahl, or rather the censorship?
Oh,
of
I'm incredibly upset. This you're talking about childhood books that I read, right? You're talking about books that I read. You're talking about a film I love, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator is fantastic. All of these wonderful creations by this author are being soiled upon by the new generation of Maoists that we now have that are trying to, culturally convert the entire world to this woke ideology, neo-Marxism, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, I'm disgusted, infuriated, upset. I will not financially support, any of this, obviously.
Well, that's the worst part is we probably don't have to, because part of this is being pushed so that every library and school buys a new copy.
Hey,
and it's riding off the new movie coming out.
Part of that conversation is this. You go to your local level of politics, and you get on your school board, and you prevent them from purchasing scholastic books until they stop, this identitarian takeover that they're trying to involve.
Yeah, don't buy any books from a publisher using Orwellian tactics.
Yeah,
that's simple. And to this also kind of dovetails a little bit of what Chris Gore was saying with the WGA. Now I can say this because I'm no longer a member. I didn't make my points, so I didn't retain it. But one thing that is a source of a lot of the problems is they have a showrunner mentorship program. And the selection used to be very difficult it was very hard to be selected for it. And over the past few years, the selection process has no longer been predicated on how good of a writer you are, but what sort of immutable attributes you have. And as a result, you have now elevated a whole bunch of people that were probably maybe 5 or 6 years away from getting into that position anyways, but you've jumped them ahead so much that they're not learning the lessons they need to. And as a result, we as in the industry and we as an audience are suffering from that.
Meritless positions of power. Yeah.
Well, it's basically you're preventing a person from earning the merits because you're giving them the hand up before they're ready. And it's really detrimental to a career, because I've seen some great talented people get jumped ahead and then completely fall and desperately try to hold on to things, and it just doesn't work out, and they kind of just swirl around as a head case, blaming other people and causing a whole bunch of problems, and it's all blown out of proportion because you're all right, and there's no middle management there to check and say, hey, we see the potential in this person, but they need a few more years working through the skills before we can actually give them this shot.
Yeah, and speaking of swirling around, Hollywood's doing a fair share of that right now. But I've got to go. Everybody, thank you for having me. Have a great day. Love you guys. Yeah.
So long,
Here. And Chris, before you go, real quick, Aid Robertson says for £4.99, I love Chris Gore. He's a bloody legend. And Snakes and Funeral says for $5, Chris, and they think that Star Wars is still a $1 billion franchise. They don't know they killed it forever.
They did. It's really disheartening. So
any final thoughts on Roald Dahl or anything before you head out the door here, Chris?
That this is beyond the pale. It's one thing to decide a book is not going to be. First of all, I think it's whenever you hear that a book is going to be banned, great promotion for the book. I immediately will seek out anything Dr. Seuss or whatever if they say it's going to get banned. And they're banned for stupid reasons. This is beyond the pale. This is out and out rewriting the words of a beloved author and also it's a great argument for used books. There's a great used bookstore in Pasadena for those listening that are local. It's called Book Alley. It's on Colorado Boulevard. Book Alley is bookstore I've been going to for more than 2 decades is a great used bookstore. There's another great used bookstore downtown LA. Solicit and give money to used bookstores. We're all gonna have to buy media that's pre the year 2000, because that's when this stuff began to break. This is beyond, and there needs to be more people speaking up about this. Who's to say that someone like Stephen King is not going to be rewritten later? I mean, people have already tried to go after Stephen King for some passages in It, right? I think some of you know what I'm talking about. Yep. So are they going to rewrite Stephen King after he passes away? Authors need to speak up.
They probably won't have to for him. I don't know if he's a great example, but yeah, he might change it himself. But yeah,
the dam is broken. The precedent's been set. You're allowing people to rewrite the words of great pieces of literature. Okay, so this is disgusting. And the people responsible, all of the people responsible at the company need to be shamed and fired. And that's where it's like, I don't blame the people doing this. They were taught to do this. I don't blame the activists. I blame the people in charge who don't have a backbone to stand up against the activists. And this is the thing that's happening in the WGA. There are idiots there right now. And then the people in charge are allowing them to flourish. And so this is all a matter of like, I don't know if it's driven by weakness or guilt or whatever, but they're allowing this to happen is just sickening to me. It's sickening, and I don't even, where's the outrage? You know, where's the outrage? It's only in alternative media like a place like this show where these things can be discussed. I think, Paul and Robert watched their videos about this topic. I can't believe it, especially when you compare the original and the new words. It's sick.
And I can't say that you're wrong to a point at all, because I'm going to go try and find it here real quick before you do leave. But if I don't, sorry. But there was one of the articles when I was looking this up for this morning that basically uses this censorship as a win, claiming that the right has buckled. I'm trying to find the actual one here, but
I don't understand that. I don't even. This is not. Look,
like it's a win for the left, basically. Like
well, of course, it's evil people using it as a win for themselves, for their side of evil.
Why is this? This is not a political side issue. This is an issue for anyone that cares about censorship, free speech. That's not blue or red to me.
Because that's why. That's why. That's exactly it right there, Chris. Because it's not, and they want to make it that so that we argue about it, but amongst ourselves. That's why. Because this is a unifying thing. This is something that we could all get behind. Most people would get behind. Like even the leftiest of leftists would go, "Wow, come on, that's a 60, 70-year-old book. What the fuck are you doing that for?" We understand, this, that, and the other. You're getting to the point where it's just minuscule things like the word fat, for fuck's sake. And I'm a fat kid, right? Augustus Gloop is fat. Deal with it. Like, his whole sin is gluttony. I mean, that's the whole point of the story.
Yeah. Oh, no, but the thing is, the people involved doing this don't know or pay attention to that because they don't care. They don't do the work. It doesn't matter to them. All that matters is for them to justify what their existence is. And the only way they can justify that is pointing out the pseudo flaws in things that aren't really flaws and saying, we have to fix this and only we can do it.
Yeah. And I'm sorry to intercut there, but Mr. Chato regrettably have to leave us. But you did a great video on this topic. Anything you want to say on it on your way out the door?
I think Chris and everybody else has basically covered it. We'll see how it progresses. I think that this has gotten blown bigger than they anticipated. There is a monetary motivation for doing this. Obviously, they get to replace all the books in all the libraries and in the United States and all the schools, whatever. And so they get to make money on this. There is a certain retaining of copyright when you do something like this, because this is a copyright prophylactic. This allows them
I didn't
to
really even think of that perspective. Yeah.
This allows them to extend the copyright of all the books. The other thing that I noticed is I researched the little shithole company and
Penguin.
Inclusive Minds, and they're like a
Bohemia.
tiny nonprofit who seems to espouse the prevailing Hollywood notion that diversity means only black and gay, like nothing else. There's no ethnicity, there's no other people, there's no Oriental, nothing. So
well, that kind of goes along with their thinking, because what was it, Leslie Headland, who's basically was like, couldn't get her head around like, oh, you can't be racist if you're white. White isn't diverse, is how she said it, or whatever, like something like that.
Well, I mean, so you are racist if you are,
or you are racist if you're white. That's what I mean.
And so
yeah, so having white people doesn't mean diversity or something
it seems to me that these companies are talking and having lunch with tiny organizations like Inclusive Media, and they get talked up and they go, oh, wouldn't this be a wonderful thing to do? And then they, this is their first big job. And I think I think the backlash to this is far greater than they anticipated, and it's only going to get worse.
Unfortunately, the question is, will that backlash help, or
No,
is it just about
I don't think so.
that's not going to do anything?
I don't. Part of the problem is the Roald Dahl, the organization, according to the documents, are behind this also.
Yeah, because the Roald Dahl heirs, they're pretty useless. A lot of them, they're not going to do anything to preserve the legacy of the founder of the House of Dahl.
And the irony is, if they had even mentioned this while he was alive, they would have been scared to death of him.
Yeah. So this is if this is in fact to circumvent the public domain aspect of the books, they're republishing the books with the edits for new copyright. But I think, and I know this from my publishing experience, I think that doesn't preclude the original works from still not becoming public domain.
No, that's correct. But they now have a new set of books that they can continue to sell and keep control of.
Exactly, which means that an independent publisher could still publish the original versions without having to pay rights to the estate. So they're not going to go away. No, but I see the evils of what they're doing in that regard. But yes,
no, I think it's more so what the last part that Paul said, they've seen a chance to virtue signal. They've seen a chance to cash in on said virtue signal. Even if anybody in Roald Dahl's estate had any kind of resistance to this, a check was cut in somebody's favor, or the numbers were shown of the last time they did something like this, or the last time when Tim Burton's movie came out, how many books they sold. And they're like, now's the time.
And really you can tell, we brought this up already. And again, I haven't read the books, is that, and you mentioned the example that I gave you where Matilda is not reading Rudyard Kipling. She's reading Jane Austen, which is, and I didn't mention this in my video, Rudyard Kipling was a children's book writer, plus he was part South Asian. So he was actually mixed race, writing children's books, and now she's reading adult books by Jane Austen. And so to me, it's the erasure of men from the books. There's a I can't remember the reason they did it or where it comes from, but they changed the word someone who's an idiot to they were a boy. So I guess the boy was an idiot. I mean, they are so politically interested in changing not just the things that might be offensive, but it's the hyper offensive. It's the what could be offensive in the future. Our school board here in Toronto changed their chief financial officer, chief executive officer. They got rid of the word chief because it was offensive to the Native community here, or the Indigenous community. And one of the reporters asked them, so so did you get complaints from the indigenous community about the word chief? No, no one complained. So they had what did I call it? Precog wokeness.
Yeah.
So not only are they trying to change what's going on now, but they're precogging. They've got these woke people in pods filled with liquid with wires attached to them, guessing what is going to be woke in the future. This is just thoroughly offensive.
Yeah, I agree. And it's sadly probably going to continue. Maybe this is
there's going to be a lot of bad publicity around this. I'm really looking forward to seeing just what the final upshot is. And we haven't heard from Puffin yet. We're going to get some kind of puffiny puff piece, extolling the virtues of inclusive minds and their tiny shithole company that really
we know in the next
shit for brains.
We can almost at least predict that the next edition, Charlie will then be a black trans woman who was raised by his single black mother and his 4 grandmas. So that we know is definitely going to happen. So,
and in the end, all that has been proven over and over is none of this new generation of wokesters have created anything of value, anything of interest, any new IP, nothing, zero, zilch.
Yeah, it's all about it's all about tearing down the old.
Correct.
Look, it's just so frustrating, and so I just don't know where all this is going to end.
Yeah, where's it going, and how's it going to end?
Well, I think it's going to end with a lot of companies suffering. Spiraling stock prices dropping, and it's going to end with people losing their jobs. I mean, this is where it's going to end until someone in middle management or in leadership grows a backbone and says, this is the way we've been doing it. This is how Hollywood has been making money, and this is what we're going to do. People like good-looking people in movies. People like a sexy Nebula. People like a shirtless Peter Quill with the Chad bod. I'm sorry, it's the way it is. Deal with it. I'm sorry that you may feel intimidated by that, and that may hurt your feelings, but it's not about you. And the other thing that concerns me about this is by making every character bland or taking any specific attributes away from characters, you're not allowing the audience to identify with someone who isn't them. Look, I read plenty of Beverly Cleary books when I was a kid. Ramona the Pest being among my favorites. Not all the characters were boys. They were young girls. I was able to identify. I was able to relate to a character that didn't look like me. This is the lesson, empathy.
Except when you were in drag.
Except when I was in drag. But what I'm saying is that part of the lesson of all fiction, literature, comic books, movies, video games is you see yourself in someone who isn't you. And so these attributes are attacking them as
technically unifying. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't help any. It's just such stupid decision making by people, who think they're doing a good thing and think they're doing a nice thing. And
you take the example where if you got a racist neighborhood and you grow up learning about that one certain word, which we won't use, and it gets into your system one way. My son, after he read Tom Sawyer, thought, Huckleberry Finn is just a continuation of it. It rocked him to his core. That book taught him what that word meant.
Yeah.
And he would never use it in his life. And so people complain, all they see is the use of the word. They don't understand the context of the book and how powerful it is. And I dare most kids these days to read it because they won't be able to. It is a very difficult book to read.
Parallel that with the modern day and how they go after Tarantino when he uses it. It's like, no, you're not looking at the context. And when
Tarantino's not a children's.
Exactly. Yeah, there's a differentiation there. That's true.
And that was a very powerful moment in his life and his learning, and he learned what that word meant in the right way, I would suggest to you, as opposed from a bunch of racist relatives. And yeah, I have no idea where this is going. I'd like it to end soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of ending, I know both of you have to leave, and we certainly have Chris on
Yeah.
overtime. But
Yeah.
Alf
Yes,
says,
thank you, Chris. Thank
why
you.
are you acting like erasing history is a new thing? The concept of erasing history has been around for centuries. It's a paradox that keeps repeating. Says Alf for $10. So thank you, Alf.
Well, yes, absolutely. Yeah. No, I you know, my point wasn't that hasn't happened before. My point is I haven't noticed it so in such an overt way in my lifetime. So it's just very, very bizarre. So, you know, I don't know. But thank you, gentlemen. I was able to stay on longer because I kind of took a phone call there and disappeared for like 10 minutes. So thank you for that.
No, I appreciate it, man.
Oh, thank you. We love having you here, and Mr. Chato as well. So everyone, make sure to check out both Film Threat and Call Me Chato. Link for both is, of course, in the description. And especially check out Film Threat's streams on Wednesday, which you really cannot miss. Anything else you want to add to that, Chris?
Yeah, we're closing in on 69,000 subs.
Wow.
You are not subscribed to the Film Threat YouTube channel. I know there's a couple thousand people watching. Please subscribe to Film Threat. Get us to 69,000. My partner there, Alaning, will very much appreciate it. You very much appreciate it. And congratulations, Chato. You're 100,000 now, or you're close?
Oh no, I'm about 2,500 away. And please give me your subscribers first before you give them to Film. Please.
You can subscribe to both. There's no need to choose. There's no need to choose.
There's only so many subscriptions to go around, Chris. Don't get hasty.
I
No,
need to get there before Film Threat. That's all I have.
And we need to get 1,000 likes. So do smash that like for both Chris and for Chato.
But don't go anywhere because we've got plenty of super chats to go. So
we do. We have plenty more. So gentlemen,
none for me, and I'll get going then.
Yeah.
Let me double check for Paul. I think we got all the ones for Chris. But yes, Chris, was there anything
always
you
nice
wanted to plug?
you, Chris.
All right. Take care. Good to see you, Paul. I'll see you guys next Monday. Take care.
Perfect.
Take care, Chris.
Bye-bye.
Take care, brother. I'm not necessarily seeing any specific ones for you, Paul, offhand. But I don't have 6 today, so I apologize if I miss one now.
And there's that other one in the that they changed that I read about in for Roald Dahl is in the Witches book. They changed her from one of the witches from a cashier to a high quality scientist or a talented scientist.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I see here that the title of James and the Giant Peach is now going to be called James and the Big Bone Peach. But
right.
Yeah. I thought I was just gonna
So that's an agenda change. Okay, so if you change fat, I kind of get it, but when you change that the business of a specific witch goes from cashier to talented scientist, it's bullshit.
Well, how about Matilda no longer reading Rudyard Kipling because she's busy reading Jane Austen?
Right, because male writers are white, and he's not even white. He was
and I have a problem with the Augustus Gloop thing because that's what my point I was getting to. Maybe you were stepped away at that point, Paul. Was that specifically? There's a reason for that. Each one of these characters, they have they're basically like a sin, right? And Augustus Gloop is gluttony.
Right.
So to not be able to call him fat, I think is a big disservice to not only the character, but clearly not something that was meant in any way, shape, or form it's a clearly a way of, he's fucking fat. Okay. It's a descriptive word. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But that's the thing is they want to make gluttony no longer a sin. Yeah. Like War Monkey saying.
Yeah. In the
end,
they don't
want you healthy.
Yeah. They're re-engineering the children, but as I said in my video, so many parents are now spending their time looking at their devices. They give a device to their kid so they won't bother them while they're looking at their devices. You're gonna get what you reap what you sow. Is that a biblical reference?
It was at one time.
I guess.
I
Okay.
believe that's
But thank you, Paul. I didn't see any more that were specifically for you. But again, like I apologize.
Well,
If I
thank
didn't
you for
catch them,
having me
so.
on, and I appreciate it.
We always
and,
love having you, of course.
I'm now working on 1970 or 1983.
Ooh.
It's a shitty year.
Yeah. I'm more worried about 84 being a good year. We'll see.
I'm
if
going to
that one
check. I'll
wraps up.
check that out. I'll give you a hint one day.
We gotta wait. We gotta wait. It's fine
Gotta
by
wait.
me. I
Gotta
love
wait.
the anticipation. Trust
83
me.
first.
Like,
We'll
like
see you,
they are
everyone.
my favorite videos right now. So take care.
They're fun to do. They are fun to do. That's for sure. Bye,
Glad to hear
everyone.
it.
Thank you so much.
right,
Oh,
take care.
Andre,
Thanks
I had
for
one
doing this.
question. Andre,
Yeah.
quick question. So Roald Dahl was Norwegian.
Yes, Roald
So-
Dahl was indeed a Norwegian.
So he was
of
kind of a
Norwegian
nasty.
parents, raised in the UK.
Okay, so he's a bit of a nasty character. So would he be typical of Norwegians? Luigi. Hey, Luigians, how are you?
They're South
Wrong
Newfoundland.
So-
he would certainly have some of the dead insideness and some of the bitterness, I think, because he's Norwegian that grew up in the UK, so that would have been slightly challenging. His dad was a merchant, but he was physically handicapped, which also was challenging for him. There were many things there which I think gave him slightly difficult life, and that I think would have made him a little bit resentful, but he would also have been atypical for most Norwegians because he wasn't raised in Norway. So culturally, he was Norwegian. They spoke Norwegian at his house and everything like that, but he grew up in the UK, so he would be very mixed. So he would have a little bit of everything, with the Norwegian dead insideness and maybe some passive
Was
aggression.
he considered a native son? Was his books popular in Norway?
Oh yeah, very much so. And also he returned frequently to Norway, and he wrote about spending his summers in Norway, learning to swim there and everything. So
Okay, that's what I want to know.
he's very popular. The
Yeah.
way that I say it, Roald Dahl, that is the proper pronunciation. That's why his name is so weird.
Roald Dahl.
Say it again.
Roald Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
Dahl.
Roald Dahl.
Yeah. Oh,
Then we got one super chat that came in at the last minute, Paul.
Thank
Says,
you, ActionCom.
ActionCom says, go ahead and submit your 1 minute video for Oscar consideration. Having it rejected would be funny as hell.
That's
Well, you get
true.
another video out of it too.
Yeah.
So you get another
Yeah,
2 or 3 videos out of that.
Yeah, I could
there you go.
easily.
There you
Okay,
go.
everyone. Bye.
Take care, Paul.
Yeah.
Bye,
And
Paul.
Script Doctor regrettably also
Has to leave us.
or be leaving us. I mean, but thanks for joining us today. Pleasure as always.
Oh no, it's been great to be here. It was a great having conversations with you and addressing these topics that are you'd think they would have these types of topics would have been crushed 40 or 50 years ago when they were being discussed again at that point. But unfortunately, history has a way of repeating bad ideas when education is ignored, so to speak. But I have to go. I have some important meetings to address, but I'll see you all later. And everyone in the audience, please stick around for the remaining super chats and topics, and have a wonderful day.
All right. Well, thank you, Script. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
All right. We've got, let's see here. At the top, Final Smash 1689 says, if you could send one director back in time with all their current knowledge to before they made a movie, who would it be for what film? I'd go with George Lucas before he made the prequels. That's not a bad one, but I don't know if he'd make any changes. That's the thing. This is maybe the one time I'd give Ridley Scott that chance, but he hasn't really earned it. Because he's another one I don't think would change or fix anything. But I mean, if we got to dictate a little bit, be like, here, you got one shot to go back and fix everything to do with Alien right now by going back to Prometheus and actually making it a proper Alien sequel like it should be and not mucking up the next one. Then maybe, I guess. Other than that, I don't know. I can't really think offhand. What about you, Andre?
I have one specific one. There's one filmmaker that has expressed regret about how he did his movie, basically saying something along the lines of, what the hell was I thinking? I did wrong. And that's the director of the original Suicide Squad, who saw after the fact that, oh shit, I shouldn't have made that stupid woman who's the witch who has like the belly dancing powers to be the villain of the Suicide Squad. It should have been Jared Leto's Joker. Because as it is, there was so much good footage with him, but we couldn't use it because it wasn't central to the story. He needed to be central. And of course, that is a script that was written in 6 weeks. It wasn't subject to much quality control. So actually, I would give him the chance to go back in time, armed with what he knows right now, and fix Suicide Squad and make it right from the beginning.
Yeah. The only other one I could think of was brought up, like Joel Schumacher. I think he personally would go back and fix Batman and Robin, and do something different. Otherwise, yeah, the other one brought up was Coppola going back to Godfather 3. Yeah, as long as you send him back with the stipulation that you cannot do the whole like incestuous thing and have your daughter play the part. That's, I think, what you need to do with that. Yeah, those are the only ones I can think of. But yeah, the Suicide Squad one, that's a good exception, even though I didn't like Jared Leto's Joker. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's your choice, though, of course.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the only other one I could think of, I'm surprised you didn't pick, Andre, would have been Conan the Destroyer. Go back and make it R-rated.
Yeah, I would, but again, the director didn't really have a choice there. That was like a studio. It was the director that screwed up there. It was the studio.
Well, that's where I'd get a hold of De Laurentiis and tell him.
So if anything, if you could go back in time and show Dino De Laurentiis the way, then yeah, of course, I'd go with that as a Conan fan. I'm like, look, here's what you did with Conan the Destroyer. Here's what you did with Red Sonja. Now, I don't know that you don't understand this, but let me show you the box office for these movies. Now, go back, hire John Milius, and fix. I would say that to him, and hope that he got that message, if nothing else.
I think that those are good answers. I'm sure there's quite a few more that you guys in the chat could come up with, or in the comments. Let us know. Hillis Mallory sends in 20, though. Thank you so much, Hillis. That's very generous.
Oh, thank you.
Says, I saw Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania yesterday. Not a bad film. Good pacing and nice interaction between main characters. MODOK is what I consider a variant TV show, still canon.
Yep,
and what happens with the king set up others getting loose. Are you sure it is? I thought he said anything pre-whatever on TV isn't canon anymore. But you could be right. I don't know.
No, the variant, he's referring to the Loki show. Well, that's most definitely canon. I mean,
I thought he meant the MODOK canon.
The end credits.
No, I think he's talking about MODOK because they had the TV show with.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, that TV show was never really considered canon. Well, of course, in the multiverse, who the hell knows? I mean, you even have like a multiverse of paint that you got established in the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So yeah, sure, why not let MODOK, the puppetry, be a variant as well? I guess everything is a variant, so might as well.
But I'm glad you enjoyed Ant-Man. Doesn't sound like too many people did. So there you go.
Yeah.
And we got Hillis Mallory again saying nearly the same thing, but only this time. Or wait, this was
saying exactly the same thing.
This is my screw up. I thought it was a member chat from the mod group. That's my fault. Sorry about that. So we got
did we finish? That's part two. Part two of the same thing. Same one.
Others get loose. Yep. Okay. That was my screw up. My bad. Paulus Plain sends in a Norwegian 200 krona and says, Tom, no Andre woke news. Nasa John hurty birdie. The problematic.
Yeah, I'll do it. Tom, no, Andre, woke news. Nasjonalmuseet Christian Kroghs kjente maleri av Leif Erikson som oppdager Amerika. Ja, Cthulhu-fortagen. Problematisk. Karin Hinsbo, direktør ved Nasjonalmuseet.
I think I can translate this. Something about Leif Erikson and a painting and it being problematic. I cheated. Natasha already did.
Thank you for bringing this up, Paulus. I want to bring up the story here, and I do have it, so I am going to bring it up on screen here. Now, this is just me going to boomer it, so you have to give me a couple of seconds to do it and get it right. Now, yes, here we go. So the story here, then, and this is from Norway, and this is a Norwegian publication, which is not mainstream. This is Norwegian alternate media, because that's also where you have to go to get the real news. And the story here, then, which I'm about to translate for you, is that Leif Erikson discovers America. That is the name of this painting, and it is by Christian Krogh. Now, for those that do not know your history, or for those that are not caught up to with Vikings Valhalla yet, this is the guy in that series. Leif Erikson is the first one from Europe that we know in history went to the Americas. He predated Christopher Columbus by several centuries. And what's been going on the last few years is that the director and curator of the Norwegian National Gallery, which is now in a new building, in the old building, this painting was by the entrance by the stairs, so everyone would see it coming into like the main halls and everything. But then they decided that, you know what, this picture is really, really problematic because it reminds people of colonialism, and we can't have that. So we're going to place it where it belongs, namely in the basement. And as soon as this got out, I'm very, very happy to report that this caused quite a stir, because everyone in Norway thinks that this is pretty insane, to be honest, because we are not down with the wokeness. You have some academics that try to import the wokeness straight from America, because these are also deluded people. And that's basically what the director and this curator then are, crazy academics who subscribe by the woke. The reason that I bring up this article is because here we actually have a local politician who is from the party Red. In case you can't guess what that means, that's not red in Norwegian politics. That's not conservative. That's communist. So this is someone then from the Norwegian Communist Party. And here is what they have to say about it. One Mimir Kristiansson. And this statement then from an actual Norwegian communist on the cancellation of the painting Leif Erikson Discovers America is, this is so stupid that you would not think it possible. I'm just doing live translation here. Christian Krogh's painting Leif Erikson Discovers America, that used to be in the stairway of the old National Gallery, has now been confined to the basement of the new one. The reason? The picture is so-called colonial, according to department director Stina Högqvist, with Swedish. And therefore, you cannot have it up. I mean, someone in the audience might be injured by the picture, or possibly allow themselves to be inspired and set the course for Newfoundland with the goal to kill Native Americans.
Oh
and then
gosh.
he points out some more double standards from this museum for the conclusion. This is political correctness and raw capitalism.
Wow.
Walking hand in hand. That's interesting. This communist, and this is a communist saying this, blames capitalism, which is ridiculous. And here comes the fun part then. Also, it must be possible to ask, by which right does a Danish museum director, because the museum director is Danish, and a Swedish department leader in the age of post-colonialism, which right do they have to dictate the Norwegian artistic canon? Being Danish and Swede, certainly coming into Norway and being in these positions and editing Norwegian history, that is colonialism, isn't it? So basically, that's the backlash of
maybe they just got confused and thought they were Norwegian. Because I mean, we always get them confused. So
yeah, I know. And basically, then the story continues
was a bad
with
joke.
some attacks on American wokeness and even some attacks on Sweden and what Swedish culture, because Sweden is. I'm not going to go on it about.
Well, no, this is just more of the same thing.
Swedes watching will know.
This is more of the same thing with the Roald Dahl business. And I disagree with it. I think it's redonkulous. I mean, yes, there's always context that needs to be specified for some people. I'm not going to disagree there, but at the same time, most people are smart enough to know the context of most things when it comes to, I'm reading or watching a movie that's from the 1960s. So there may be something in it that is not necessarily up to today's standards as far as, wokeism.
But there's
most people don't give a fuck. But yes, anyway, continue with the painting.
There's a happy end to this story, and this is from today, from like 5-6 hours ago. We have an update, and this then is from Aftenposten, which is one of Norway's leading papers. That it used to be conservative, but the corporate owners couldn't have that, so this is also now a rather socialist-leaning newspaper. But anyway, that aside, the news that they are reporting is that the National Museum are doing a turn, or doing an about-face. They will hang up the Krog Leif Erikson painting anyway because of the backlash. And then they say, now that it has been so much debate about this picture, we will make it available for the audience. Because due to the massive criticism, so good going, Norway. I'm proud of you. This is good. Really, really good. So then they talk about the backlash, the people involved. This is the one pictured right here. This would be the Danish woman. They basically apologize, saying that their comments were out of context and all of that jazz. So now the picture will be up in the National Gallery for the next 4 weeks. Then it goes back to the basement, because they probably haven't really changed their minds all that much. But I would anticipate that they're going to have some pretty decent visitation numbers in those next 4 weeks. But what I think is pretty good here is that, there was a massive backlash, such backlash that they have to put it up, and now people will be coming just to see that picture. And if people continue making a stink about it, maybe it will stay as well. It should. So that's that story on the topic of the cancellation of Roald Dahl. So there's more Norwegians attempted to be cancelled, but this one failed, at least temporarily.
That's good. There's that. Because, we cannot have this kind of crap continue on. It's just ridiculous. I don't care anymore about what their reasoning is for it, because to me, there is no good reason. I mean, unless somebody's physically being hurt or whatever, then there's no reason for it. People are dying. Like, is the book giving people a disease? Is the painting making people, freak out and kill people or something? Like, that's the most strangest thing I've ever heard in my life, is that and I know you were kind of probably being facetious there, or was that actually in the article?
No, that was in the article. That was the response from the
me?
communist.
Oh my fuck. Please stop the planet. I want to get the hell off. That is the dumbest shit. I thought you were being in jest there, Andre. I didn't realize
when I
that
said
was...
like the thing about that it might inspire someone.
Some new colonists. Like, we're gonna go over.
Well,
where?
It was actually
What
that
the
was in the
fuck?
article. It was the communist that said that, but only like mocking the craziness of the woke people that this communist then misattributes to capitalism, when nothing could be further from the truth.
That whole thing sounds ridiculous to me. I'm just like, what? Like, I literally thought you were just talking about it in jest, like you were making it up like a hyperbole.
No, I was reading from the article. I was doing a live translation.
But then again, it's the other guy saying the reason. He's talking about how strange it is to want to take it down, though. It's not the other person. Okay,
exactly.
Gotcha.
And that's what I kind of like think is interesting, that that the people that are behind the cancellation, they are essentially cultural Marxists. Whereas here you have an actual communist that's even calling out, saying this is freaking crazy. You guys are nuts.
Yeah, that I can see then. Okay. Yeah, because like if you can, because look, I mean, this to me goes all the way back to the whole like Roald Dahl thing like we were talking about before. It's just getting ridiculous at this point. The extent of which they're going to, I mean, you destroying statues, works of art, removing works of art, altering things. When's it going to stop? When is it going to stop? I'd like to know. And I'd like to think that some of these things are part of the final as I've put out there before, because, you know, the painting is a great example of how that got smacked down real quick. But, I mean, the reaction to the Roald Dahl books could go worse than the Dr. Seuss ones. I mean, a lot of people just didn't care or pay attention to the Dr. Seuss thing at that time, but I wonder if they will during this Charlie and the Chocolate Factory thing.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but let's get back into these super chats.
Yeah, let's do that.
So thank you again, Paul was playing for that. We got Dr. Longdongler, who sent us in a thumbs up. Please hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. We have North Fairfax, who says, this will keep the lights on for you and keep you in curry for a few weeks. Yes, he sent me this on the PayPal side. So thank you for that. And then we've got the Thursic Versus, who says Kevin Feige is the new Kevin Smith. The Marvels is more betterest than the bestest Avengers. When I saw it, my flesh crawled. I mean, I got chills. No, he would have cried. He hasn't cried yet. As soon as he cries, then we know he's gone full Kevin Smith. God King Dictator sends 35 South African rands and it says, I think he means internationally. Picard officially a flop. Rejoice because screw Alex Kurtzman. No measurable signups to justify investment. 60th anniversary canon reset coming.
He means internally. So the internal numbers at CBS that would be, or at Paramount, presumably that would be. And yeah, I'm not surprised. We may like Picard, but after the damage that already has been done, how many will be flocking to Picard and sign up to Paramount Plus just for that show? I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see as the weeks go by here. It's just one episode. If things really pick up the next few weeks, we'll see. But I'm not surprised that so far there's not much.
Then Callum Lyle says, are actors allowed to question when they read scripts because that She-Hulk actress must have known this wasn't going to go well, or are all complicit? Okay, this is a very nuanced question to a very broad answer. If you can get my drift here. Depending on the actor, they can have a say and sway a script. Otherwise, sometimes they just don't give a shit. Or they don't know any better. Patrick Stewart, speaking of Picard, is a great example of somebody who, to him, Picard, the canon stuff, what happened before, what happens with other characters, all the ins and outs of Star Trek, he don't give a shit. If
there's someone who is complicit, it's him.
Yeah, like he never watched any of that crap. So like the reason the first 2 seasons of Picard ended up the way they did is because he influenced how those scripts were going. Somebody in like what's her face at She-Hulk, she's not at the level yet as an actress to where she can kind of be dictating shit, like in that respect. So again, this is a very nuanced question to a very broad. To be able to answer this it would take a lot more than what I can give you.
I can give a really, really quick answer.
There you go. I'll say, yeah.
The really short answer is that for actors who are really high-profile A-list actors, they do get to have a say. They can actually sway the direction of a script. And in that sense, actually, yeah, you can hold them complicit because they can pick and choose. And if there's something really, really horrific, then an A-list actor who is in demand can just go with anything else. But that's for A-list actors. Then you have like much smaller actors, working actresses, like Tatiana Maslany, who was in She-Hulk. She will be called in for an audition, and then she will be presented with the script, and then she can give her notes and her feedback to it, to which they will reply, you are in no position to comment anything one way or the other. Do you want this gig or do you not want this gig? And if you want this gig, then you be prepared to be aboard with everything in the script publicly. And if you're not, then good luck finding another equally high-profile job. So basically, then you are dealing with an actor or actress who are just trying to get by in an extremely competitive industry where 99% have to moonlight as bartenders to make the ends meet or have an OnlyFans or what have you. So can you then really hold them accountable when they have no say in the matter? And for 99.9% of the actors and actresses, they have no say in the matter. Their option is, do you want to be in this or do you not want to be in this? And if you're in this, you're in it all the way.
And we're seeing a situation right now going on with Yellowstone and Kevin Costner, right? Like, he is trying to kind of do his own thing, and that's somewhat of a situation where normally that would dictate the entire run of the show. And there's even talk of the show ending. And the only reason Paramount isn't stepping in is for their own reasons that it would take forever to explain. But yeah, like, that's a great example of a situation where that kind of brought that whole show to a screaming halt for the most part. If it wasn't for the fact that Taylor Sheridan is equally as, or more so right now in Hollywood, powerful, and his shows have been doing well outside of that, they'd probably be more worried about Costner. But at this point, they're like, go, get away, fine. We'll just revamp the show and put it on Paramount Plus then instead. That's the way they can get out of the whole other deal. But that's, like I said, a whole nother situation. But yeah, it's one of those really nuanced things. But Andre kind of summed it up best there. Hillis Mallory, we pointed this out earlier. Puss in Boots only dropped 5%. Yeah, I saw you posted that earlier, and that's what I was bringing it up to culture. But yeah, that's pretty good for that film, if that's true. Pilgrim Media says, I watched Megan and Harry South Park Comedy Gold. Yeah. Did you hear they're trying to sue them? Andre?
I wish them good luck in that, and I look forward to the trial.
I bet you Trey and Matt are just like, oh yes, thank God.
Yeah. I hope it'll be live in front of a studio audience.
It'll be
the most fun thing since the Amber Heard thing, only less serious. But of course,
it'll never go to trial. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, but of course, Megan, she has all of the Amber Heard mental conditions. So yeah, I'm not surprised.
Exactly, like I said, but it will never get to that point. But like, yeah, because that's definitely under parody and satire. And at least in the U.S., if you're a public figure like that, and by public figure I mean somebody who's,
the UK too.
Yeah, like royalty would be, I assume, the same as like a president or a senator or whatever. That's where Schwarzenegger ran into issues. He tried to stop a bunch of shit, but as soon as he became governor, there was nothing he can do. Right? Like, unless it was encroaching on the Terminator or something else, then there wasn't much he could really do. He couldn't even really stop the Governator material because it was protected. I'm sure. Protected under both parody, and he was a public figure now.
Yeah.
So that makes him uncopyrightable at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, in this case, it doesn't matter because they're not using their actual pictures. They're not using their full names. And they're saying they're Canadian royalty, not British royalty. So it's pretty well protected. I don't think they're worried about it.
I think they appreciate the attention, though.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they're like, yeah, please sue us. Try to. Jim Watari says, I did not know that White Noise was a pre-documentary. Well, I vaguely remember that movie. Mr. Buttcrack Media has gifted 5 Midnight's Edge memberships. Thank you so much, Mr. Buttcrack Media. That's amazing. Hey, we got Toxic Man Flu in the house. He's been a member for 8 months at the Viking level and says, could not care less about any less about this film. I'd rather watch She-Hulk. Oh, that's damning.
I don't know about that, but yeah, to each their own.
Yikes. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go to that level. You just want more She-Hulk so we can have more She-Hulky awards, admit it. I missed who this was. Dang it.
Lordy, is it not?
Yeah, that.
Oh no, sorry. That's Edgelord is the level.
Yeah, let me double check here in the mod group. It's in here. I just didn't copy it because of the thing. I must not have copied the whole thing. Hang on. This is the one about
Phase 1 of Marvel. And for those that wonder, this software that really struggles with membership chats. So
and I don't have 6 today either, so yeah, I'm struggling.
Yeah,
and I'm struggling on top of it. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to find this member chat in the thing while Sadie's barking at the mailman. or something, neighbor or something. Mail can't run in today. Okay, here we go. No, actually, Olaf missed who it was, so that's how I missed who it was. So I don't know who it was who said this, but thank you for being a member, whoever it was. It says, I rewatched Phase 1 of Marvel, and I felt there is something inherently different from what phase to from that phase to the other phase. Why is that? Well, there's one thing, the big thing that I would say is the difference is that it is that point of Avengers, pretty much where it changes phases, is when Disney got involved. And that's one of the main reasons there's changes.
Right, I would say the bigger change is the people behind. Phase 1 was when you had all of the proper storytellers, plus checks and balances guy. Ike Perlmutter was there. Whereas now, afterwards, all of those original storytellers are gone.
This is from Bryant Barth.
Yeah. So
yeah, like there's that aspect of it. Yeah, basically. It became more of a McDonaldization of Marvel at that point. Yeah. Slowly but surely. And then quickly as it got after Endgame. Glade Ribbon says, according to Stephen Bouchard, RDJ isn't returning. Yeah, I've been hearing both sides of it. I heard back in the day, all he was returning for was basically he was going to be the voice of the new Jarvis for Ironheart. So it wasn't even technically Iron Man he was playing. He was just basically an AI.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the case still. Buff Geek says, I had sugar-free Twizzler version and then went for a run around National Mall. FYI, restrooms on the National Mall are miles apart. 10 out of 10 would not recommend.
There you go. And then Jim Watari clarified this earlier super chat. Oh, thank you. This is some very important context.
Oh, I forgot all about that. Yeah.
It's a movie about a train wreck in East Palestine, Ohio. You know, the place that right now should probably be renamed East Chernobyl.
Well, I'm going to say this is probably more of coincidence than anything, because probability is they probably picked that spot in White Noise because the spot where it's happened, I'm willing to bet this is not the first time a train wreck's happened there. I bet you if you go back, it's probably a spot where it's happened a couple times. I could be wrong. I'm just poking in the dark here. Otherwise, that is eerie as fuck, but yeah.
Well, there have been quite a few like train derailments lately. Maybe we just noticed them now, but...
Well, yeah. Well, this one specifically just because of the chemicals on it. I'm saying maybe they've had derailed trains in that area before because of a part of the track or some variation of the terrain or something, and they just picked it in White Noise because it already had 2 or 3 train wrecks there over the last 100 years. You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong, but I'm just shooting in the dark there.
Yeah. I don't know enough about it. I will just say that... Actually, I'm not going to say anything. I'll save it for Rumble. I'll just say I feel...
That's the thing. I'd have to research it a little bit, and then even then it would...
We haven't researched this. I will just say I feel with the population.
I have very strong feelings on the other side of the whole Ohio thing, and right now is where I feel like, you know, we talk about the woke people a lot, and this is a time when these people have talked about a lot of things, and I don't see a lot of action out of them. So,
no. Where is
I'll leave it at that.
Right now, where is she? She needs to be there on the spot complaining.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
They said in the 60s in Salem, Ohio. So there, yeah. So I'm kind of, maybe that's a spot where they have a lot of accidents. Buff Geek, we got that one. Thank you so much. Then HX20 Games says, is a member now. Thank you so much for that. Nebula is composed with Sean Gunn's body. Look at the legs pose. It says Gonzalo Bergali. I was thinking the same thing, and then Six found something and tweeted it to, or a couple of tweets that kind of were weird. Let me see if I can bring it up here. Sean Gunn retweeted out that poster and said, I'd like to see that movie. And then Farbod something or other retweeted or called him a poster boy. And he liked it or whatever. So, I don't know. Maybe he knows something, like it is Sean Gunn in almost all those bodies, like we were saying earlier. Like
that would be kind of fun if it was.
It might be. I mean, that's what the first
because
thought
that definitely isn't Chris Pratt's body, as you pointed out.
And then, like I said, Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but like then to be consistent, then they should have taken the body of Dave Bautista as well.
See, Dave Bautista's body looks weird too. Like his head looks too small for his body in that image. It almost looked like his was composited as well. Like everybody pretty much looks composited for the most part, except for Gamora. But she still looks almost half-ass composited. I don't know. I'd have to really look at it for a while and analyze it. But yeah. So anyhow, moving on, we've got Glade Ribbon who says, never blame the designer, always blame the suits they report to.
This is a good point, because either the suits ordered it or they missed it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Quantumania is the greatest Marvel movie to come out this month, this year. I said it, prove me wrong, says Eric K. I will not prove you wrong, Eric K. Because I heard it was the greatest Marvel movie since last Marvel movie, and is the best Marvel movie till next Marvel movie.
And it's the highlight of Phase 5 so far.
And it is. It is the best Marvel movie in Phase 5. Hands down. Hillis Mallory says, I'm still looking forward to Secret Invasion.
So with Disney, because that's the one that they said that they actually have faith in addition to Loki Season 2.
You know why they probably have some faith in Secret Invasion? Because it actually has some characters that people know.
Yeah, it has Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. Lissa Marion says, break the skin of civilization and you find the ape roaring and red-handed. R-E-H.
Yeah, that's a good quote by Robert E. Howard, creator of Conan.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely.
DCB Titan says, Riri Williams was flawed from the conception. Better question is, why not make War Machine series? Yeah, I agree. Or just do what I said. There's an easy fix to this. You just make her a character that A, is not obnoxious, and B, doesn't steal her tech. All you had to do is, like I said, Robert Downey Jr. goes out and gives kids prosthetic arms all the time as Tony Stark, basically.
I'd watch that as a drama series.
And like basically he goes to this one place and there's this little girl who goes, my heart doesn't work right. Can you build me a new heart, Mr. Stark? And it just derails him because, he does these other things, but he's like, shit, I don't know how I can fix that. But what he does is he goes back and he makes a heart a lot like his with a reactor in it. And then after he died, like he died in Endgame, you could have set it up that he had a suit built for her and inscribed on the inside is, you are my Iron Heart. And that's where she gets the name. Ooh, how hard is that?
Too hard for the new generation of writers. Refer back to what Chris Gore said that he didn't want to elaborate any more of, but I think we can safely extradite from that the diversity hires currently occupying Hollywood writers' room aren't doing all that great.
It's not that hard to do, right? It's because the thing is they got to be able to make her independent or tear him down somehow. That's their goal. See, that's the problem. That's the easiest way you can fix it, is not do those two things. And it's just like the Cobra Kai writers do. You got to respect the past and then it's easy to come up with new characters who you can look up to or like, because those characters look up to and like the classic characters. If you get somebody who's an obnoxious snot, then they're not likable. And if they're stealing tech and doing other stupid shit, who's going to like them for that? I mean, it's just dumb. Makes absolutely no sense. But yeah, Riri Williams is one of the dumbest characters I ever heard of in my life, and she's easily fixed, unfortunately. Gabriel Kuroga says Ant-Man was powerfully mediocre and boring. They did nothing interesting with the Quantumanium realm. By the way, Kang has now been beaten by Sylvie and Ant-Man. What the fuck? Yeah, they actually brought this up the other day, Friday, when we were talking about the show. You might have missed it, but yeah, Andre, you brought this up. That basically Kang is one of the worst villains ever.
He's a joke. I mean, the potentially scary thing about him is that there might be an actually capable version of him out there somewhere in the multiverse. But the only thing we've seen so far is that he is nothing without his uniform. We've seen Sylvie, who is gender-bent Loki. She killed him. Ant-Man beat the snot out of him, and so did the ants. So yeah, this is someone who Ant-Man, the least formidable of the Avengers, who's also an idiot, and he can hold his own against Kang.
Well, he is a boy, like that book said.
Yeah. I mean, Kang wouldn't last 2 seconds against the real Avengers.
Oh yeah, no, like this turns me off completely. Like I said, I didn't watch all of Loki. I watched the first and most of the last episode, and the whole Kang thing to me came off as dumb as hell. But I mean, I can at least accept Sylvie doing it because she is a female Loki. Loki has powers. Loki is a very powerful being. Like he's at least a formidable foe. Ant-Man though, might as well have been fucking Hawkeye for that matter. I mean, what? Like,
Hawkeye is 10 times as formidable as Ant-Man. I mean, Kang wouldn't have stood a chance against Hawkeye.
Really?
Maybe unless like Kang was like riding a snowmobile, maybe then. But failing
I mean, yeah. I disagree to a point because yes, Ant-Man can be useful in his size range. The difference is, you're right, Scott himself is not very bright. I mean, didn't they even make the whole joke about him going up Thanos' butt and then getting large? And like, didn't they put that in the actual movie, or was that just me remembering?
I don't remember. But speaking of jokes, I just have to say that this right here, this is so disrespectful. No one should ever say stuff like this, even if there's a whole full room full of Kangs who can say this between themselves after they're beaten. I don't want to see this joke.
Yeah, well, they set themselves up. That's the problem. That's the fucking problem.
It's unbelievable. Like, how could they do that to us? How are we supposed to not make that joke?
Oh, they do it on purpose. Granite Man says, what about the type of booze I want to drink? Well, Granite Man, you just drink what you want to drink, man. I'm not sure what you were referring to. I was probably what somebody said at one point, but I apologize we didn't catch it when it was more relevant. Mr. STVR says, with every chance another writer strike is coming soon, do you guys have any advice for newbie writer? Can I scab my way into this career in secret? Script Doctor's not here. He'd probably have a better way to address this. But look, if this is going to be as bad as what Chris is kind of implying outside of the whole other part of it, like, I mean, because the way he's making it sound is like a strike's almost inevitable. And it is. Like, the writers go on strike more than anybody, and in some cases probably rightfully so. This time I have no idea if it's rightfully so. I have to look into it. Because they are the most overlooked contributors to this industry, and they make the least amount compared to their peers and other people in the industry, and the amount that they do contribute. But at this point, like, this would probably be the best thing ever happened. Let them strike. And then maybe some decent writers can sneak into Hollywood by scabbing their way in. Because the longer the strike lasts, the more chance of that happening. But the problem you have here is, and this is my understanding, and this is why I wish Script was here, is they can't really take scabs unless it's independent. In which case you don't have to have a writer who's in the guild anyway. So basically Hollywood will come to a dead fucking halt. We've seen this 2 or 3 times in the last 30 years. And the one that was the worst, if I remember right, was like in 87, 88. And that's why there's that patch in there where there's like not a lot of movies you remember from that era, because we had a pretty long strike happen. And at that point, shit just kind of came to a halt. It was just, that's exactly what happened. And not too long ago, we had this happen again, where things just kind of came to a halt for a little bit, but they worked it out. So what will happen is shows will get pushed off or canceled. Movies will get pushed off or canceled. It's
that's how we lost My Name is Earl. I still haven't gotten over that.
Exactly. That's the last one. One of the last worst ones we had, where they actually, because that's what's going to happen. But in this case, it might actually be a good thing. What I'm worried about is my Taylor Sheridan shows and stuff like that, and stuff that isn't already contractually obligated to be done by whenever. Andre, anything more to add or subtract from that?
No, I think that sums it up.
So yeah, unfortunately for anybody who wants to break into the industry, if a strike were to happen, I would bone up on just trying to figure out how to make an independent film at that point. Because at that point, that's when they start releasing old shit that's been sitting on the shelf forever.
If you have something that's on the shelf already, if you're someone that already submitted a few scripts, now may be your lucky day.
There you go. And then we've got Anthony D'Angelo, who says the people that hate DeSantis are the same people that removed the word gay from the West Side Story. Ugh. Well, In what way was gay in West Side Story? Now I'm trying to remember. Was it in like gay as in happy, or did they call somebody gay as a derogatory term?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or use it in a derogatory
quite
way,
enough about this, but what I do see out there is that there's some emerging DeSantis derangement syndrome going on. So all of his very trained and practiced imitation of the Orange Man bad's body language is evidently paying off.
Did they really take it out of the song? Because if they did that, that's redonkulous. That's the most redonkulous shit I've ever heard. That's almost as bad as me thinking for a moment that the Communist Party people were actually ones saying that shit about that painting earlier, Andre. When I realized it was the opposing side, not
Yeah.
Anyway, what about Tom Conkle? What's he doing now? We miss Tom. I try to get a hold of him all the time.
Yeah,
he's
when
so
he has
busy.
some, he's welcome to hop on here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see why you would take that out of the song. That is fucking ridiculous. But anyway, moving on here, we got let's see here. We got that one. This is the one we're left off. London 1965-7 says even the Guardian UK paper says this is too much. Dahl. Yeah. And that's what I was saying earlier too, is like, this is something I can see a lot of people getting behind regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. And I wish I could have found that. Again, I went back and looked for it. Maybe they pulled it down, but it did. It like said this Roald Dahl thing was a victory for the left in so many words with its headline. And I'm just like, wait a minute here. What the fuck? Like, why are you even trying to make this a left or right thing? This is about a freedom of speech, expression, and historical preservation.
That's what people need to realize. What's going on isn't a left versus right thing. It's an authoritarian versus everyone else thing. And it's the authoritarians that want you to be infighting against left versus right. But really, it's a them versus everyone else thing. And we are everyone else, all of us, regardless where we all stand on the political divide.
Indeed. And then we have Bob Dorsey here, who sends in $20. Thank you so much. Says, I'm behind the thread. Gentlemen, Rotten Tomatoes cannot be trusted directly. They manipulated Dave Chappelle's hour-long specials in the past for political reasons, let alone the shenanigans on the site itself. Yeah, I was actually just having this conversation in the chat itself about, somebody said something like Ant-Man and Wasp is sitting at 88% right now on Rotten Tomatoes, and that ain't so bad. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't trust that number. And I went and checked. Sure as hell, IMDb's sitting at 6.6%. That is not good for an IMDb score of a movie like this. And it's sitting at B. It's sitting at B at a cinema score. That's the more damning one. And Andre will tell you right now why that is because
that's because cinema score is actual exit polls. And what
that's what I was trying to get to. Yeah.
What you have to keep in mind here is that the ones who are polled here are the ones that have gone out of their way to see the movie opening weekend, and as early as they can. These are the fans. These are the people who cosplay and dress up to go see the movie. These are the ones who are predisposed to liking it. They're going to give, even a shit movie is going to get an A- from them. For them to give anything less than an A-, it's got to be pretty freaking bad. Which is why a B cinema score for a genre movie like this with an active fan base, that's the same as an F for any other movie. Any thoughts on that, Tom, or did you have to jump out there suddenly? I think Tom had to jump out there suddenly. All right. Okay. Well, then I'm just going to continue with the Andre solo show. Shadow Dancer, the Red Mage, good seeing you at the membership stream yesterday, by the way, says, woke reminds me of OCP, deliberately burning old Detroit to greenlight Delta City, Stones of Dark Shade. That's actually a really good observation, and welcome back, Tom. And it harkens back to what I was just saying, that this isn't about left or right, it's about authoritarians, and that's what OCP is. Wanting to burn down what was to create their new ideal society. in Delta City in their case, and you all know the name in our case. So
there's a reason why I
observation
love
there.
RoboCop, not just
Yeah.
for I always have, but now it's even become it's aged like a fine wine and then some.
Exactly.
And then we got this one.
This
Thank you,
was for
ExtraCom.
Paul. We did get that one earlier.
Yep. We got Aaron Pikes who says, curious, the blimp has really screwed up the MCU and its ripples continue. Endgame was drawn from the comics. How did the comics handle Thanos versus the movies?
Actually,
go ahead.
Do you want to take it, Tom? Go right ahead.
I was going to say, at first, I'm glad that that they changed it from the comics, because to me it came off like Thanos was doing it for a piece of pussy. But I mean, there's other people who've explained it to me, or at least they feel a little differently about it, to where I understand. I mean, you could have went both ways, really, I guess. But
I've read these comics.
Yeah, go ahead and give me your response to it then, because I haven't read them all.
Endgame, Erin, was not drawn from the comics. What was drawn from the comics was Avengers Infinity War. That was drawn from the Thanos Quest and the Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange comics immediately following, leading into the whole Infinity Gauntlet event. So Infinity War was basically the movie version of the Infinity Gauntlet company-wide crossover event. Avengers Endgame was not. Avengers Endgame was bullshit made up by the current regime at Marvel, and it was made specifically to end what had been before and set the stage for what was to come. And what was to come was, obviously, James Gunn wasn't there, but still this multiverse saga and everything, that was set up right there. You saw how both the Loki series and the WandaVision series, all of this was set up deliberately in Endgame. So this was never in the comics. What happened in the comics, there was no 5-year gap with a blip with everyone disappearing. No, basically, like, the whole event kind of never happened. No one remembered it other than those directly involved. So the Marvel Universe carried on. Endgame, I would say, like many people like to say that Endgame is like the end of real Marvel. I disagree. I don't like Endgame. Endgame, to me, is the beginning of the end for Marvel. The real end for Marvel was Infinity War, you ask me. And I would say that Thanos was on the whole handled better in the movie for this particular storyline, because Tom is right. In the particular Infinity Gauntlet storyline, Thanos' motivation wasn't anything noble about saving the universe or something. No. He just wanted to impress the personification of death, to put it bluntly.
Yeah. He wanted
a piece of pussy. That's kind of what he wanted there. But I will say then, of course, but the story of Thanos continued. And beyond Avengers, beyond Infinity Gauntlet, that storyline in the comics, his story in the comics, beyond that is pretty amazing. Some of the most amazing storytelling there is, courtesy of one Jim Starlin, who is also Thanos' creator. And Clobber in Times apparently agrees with my retelling of the Infinity Gauntlet stuff, so thank you. High praise there.
And he is my go-to for this kind of stuff, so yes, I would have. That's why I highlighted it. So yeah. And you can see Klobby usually with us on Mead every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. So there you go. Mecha J says, I really hate the word problematic. It feels like a word the woke came up with to describe anything or anyone they don't like. Yes. And I usually use it facetiously or in jest. Or if I do use it in any serious terms, I'm usually quoting somebody else. Or, even then, a lot of times when I say it, you can hear the fucking sarcasm in my voice. I hate that word. Garrick, you know one word I hate more than problematic? POC. That's one I hate more. Because it sounds too much like the other one, CP. But yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway. Garrick Morbius says, or Mobius, sorry, not Morbius, says, with Mama Susan doing a Jack Dorsey and Google's pre-bunking, I sense another purge. Think Midnight Side should spread their audience to Rumble, Odyssey, etc. Yes, we have. Luckily, I think we're still under the radar enough for some of those folks, but we've made enough enemies that, yeah, we always try to watch our tail.
It's funny that you should mention that. We actually are on Rumble and Odyssey. We've been on Odyssey for a long time. Rumble, we've only been on the past couple of days here. So everyone, please head on over to Rumble and follow us there. Last I checked, we were not even past 1,000 subscribers. Please get us past 1,000 subscribers on Rumble. So head on over there and follow us there.
Yeah. And Vertical Horizon says Tom's got Morbius on the mind. Well, it is Morbin time all the time. And no, I'm not down with POC, but I am down with OCP like Davina Duckworth is. So yes. There's that too. So thank you guys. And then we have the Mecha J one we got already. We got this one. Here we go. Paulus Plain says, Tom, no, Andre, please tell the English of Norway's history and colonialism. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Iceland.
Ooh, that's a long and complicated story. Well, really quick, because we have.
If it helps, I already am very well versed in the fact that Leif Erikson was here long before Christopher Columbus.
That's a good start.
And all that kind of business. I am kind of up to speed with some of that stuff. So, like, yeah.
Well, basically, Norway begun because we went and we made a colony out of Iceland. So that was first, and then both Norway, Sweden, and Denmark went eastwards and made a number of colonies in Eastern Europe, and also in France, and obviously in England. The Danes especially went to England. The Norwegians went to France. That's Normandy. That's the Norwegians. Mm-hmm. You still have a bunch of Danish place names in England and everything like that from the Viking Age. And then fast forward a few centuries, and then for a number of reasons, look, all the good Norwegian Vikings, they became kings in Europe, and those that were left, they died out. And then suddenly Denmark decided, hey, this would be awesome if we make colonies of our neighbors. Then Norway became a colony under Denmark. And then Denmark also had a bunch of colonies in the rest of the world. And Sweden decided, hey, let's make a colony out of Finland. And then later on, Denmark was in the losing side in the Napoleon Wars. And then Norway was given as a gift or as spoils of war to Sweden. So then Norway went from being a Danish colony to being a Swedish colony. And Finland remained a Swedish colony. And also there was Greenland. Greenland was also a Norwegian colony at one point, but that continued and stayed under Danish rule, which it is to this day. Whereas Iceland became independent.
So you guys are basically the World Cup of countries? I mean, you passed around like a... Never mind, I'm not going to finish that. But
Kinda, yeah. And then eventually Finland got their own independence. Then Russia decided, hey, you know what? We want a piece of Finland because our border is too close. Then you had like the Finnish Winter War. That's a great movie. Check it out. And also the Finnish soldiery is pretty badass for standing up to the Russians, even though they lost in the end. And and then Norway got fully independent again in 1905 after a very, very short war with Sweden. It was won mostly with bureaucracy, and thus ends the story of Nordic colonialism.
Yeah, I'm more confused than I started. You lost me some way back, but I'm surprised and impressed that you remember all that. Because like I'm listening here thinking at this through all this whole thing, it's like, you know, they give us a lot of shit, but in 200 years we've only had one civil war. Like, as big of a country as the United States is, with as many states that are in it, as different kind of cultures within those states, I think we've managed pretty goddamn good for the past 100 and some years.
You gotta know your history. And Christopher Dominguez said, "What about Finland? What, didn't you listen? I just told you they were a colony under Sweden. Then they got their independence, and then Russia.
Somebody wanted a piece
of that.
Yeah,
and
Russia.
Yeah,
we want a piece of your Finland.
Yeah, and they got it, but not as much as they would have liked."
Oh Lord, thank you for that, Paulus played. Then we got Alpha again, who says, Andre, Tom, this is why I'm pushing the recommendation of Attack on Titan. There's so many parallels between the series and the real world. Well, it's definitely something I got to get on my...
Hold that thought, and be ready to repeat it.
He keeps threatening me.
Yes.
Keeps threatening me. STR Red Wolf says, train derailments happen all the time, but Norfolk Southern's has been lax about maintenance of the track detectors, and train cars do research it. Yeah, I've heard some things like this too.
Are they not also owned by BlackRock? I think they are.
I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, this is, look, you've even got people like Rosie O'Donnell, who are some of the leftiest of lefties. We're starting to bitch about it, but it's like, now I want to see y'all do something though. Put your money where your mouth is. Y'all been talking all this shit. You've been saying you'll take in all these immigrants all this time. There's a bunch of people who need to be relocated from Ohio right now. Like, I don't want to get into this whole thing, but like, let's be real. Like, why is this not being a bigger deal is beyond me too. It does drive me nuts.
I would say that even in Soviet, they tried to cover up for as long as they could, but once they realized that, okay, this is worse than we first thought, even they evacuated the towns surrounding Chernobyl. Even they didn't want to see too many innocents die.
Well, and that's just it. This is gonna have repercussions we have no clue beyond. And yeah, I want
this is a topic for Rumble, but this is a world-changing event.
I was gonna say I would love to talk more about it, but we definitely gotta move past it. Master Clockwork says the question is, did Quantumanium save lives? Well, maybe.
Not many enough, because there were no trans characters. Unless you count
That's true.
You count that barbarian woman in the quantum realm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we've got Paulus Plain, who says, Tom, no aquavit?
Aquavit, yeah, that's the water of life. That's a Norwegian hard liquor. 60%.
Lord. Then Jesus Davila sends us a super sticker. Let me see if I can see what that is. It is a super sticker. I don't think my stuff is updating here. Hang on. We'll say it's a thumbs up or a box of popcorn. It usually is a thumbs up. Thank you, Jesus. And then we got HX220 Games, who says, ever since the blip, I knew the MCU is over. Well, yeah, I was Andre now at this point. Honestly, it would have been a weird ending, but you probably could have just ended it with Infinity War, and it would have been like, yeah, that's it. Thanos won. We're done. Like, or Endgame for that matter, I guess. At least
I think that Infinity War would have been a beautiful.
I know for most people, but I mean, to have some kind of resolution, though. I mean, even if you add Endgame into it, to me, that kind of was the end of the Marvel Universe, with Spider-Man kind of being like this leftover, and Guardians just kind of being on its own kind of footing in a way, even though it melded with them in the Endgame Infinity part, and that's going to influence the third film. The first two films kind of stand on their own. Like, they don't really tie into anything else in the Marvel Universe all that much. So, or at all, really. So, like, it's just kind of, you know, they just happen to take place in the same universe at that point. It's just until the Infinity War combination.
Yeah. And and Hypergiver says the best he can make is 18%. Actually, you know what? There's a Norwegian song where in the song, in the lyrics, they give you the recipe for how to make moonshine that reaches a strength of 96%. So, look up the song Brennvin and use Google Translate, and you'll have your recipe for how to make about 8 liters of 96% moonshine.
There you go.
Tip.
And with that, we are caught up. And if you think we missed one of your super chats, please let us know right now. But I think I did the best job I could being 6 today. If I did screw up, though, I apologize, and let us know now so we can go back and check. But I'm going to double check with my mod group and see if there was anything else that I may have missed. But other than that, we should have Toxic Femininity tonight. In fact, I think Carrie Smith will be joining us tonight. Is there anything, Andre, you had to bring up at all?
Yeah, no, just check back the next few days, because we'll have a number of scripted videos dropping as well, and of course check out Toxic Femininity with all the ladies later tonight.
Indeed. And with that, it looks like we are caught up. I don't see anything new in the mod group, and I don't see anybody in the chat saying we missed their super chat. So thank you so much, guys, for listening today. We appreciate it. Hit that like if you haven't already. We could sure use it, and it lets YouTube know that you like the show, and it gets you alerts for more and stuff like that business. So take care of yourselves and each other. And Andre, it is time.
And go follow us on Rumble.
Oh yes, follow us on Rumble. I haven't even followed us on Rumble yet. I gotta set up Mead for Rumble. Well, I gotta set up Mead for Rumble. That's why. All right, koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koala, koala. Koalas in the rain. Koalas in the rain. No fucks given. Koala, koala. Koalas in the rain.